Warrior Lore. Chapter 278. Is Little Yao about to break through? Du Xiaofu was pleasantly surprised, but also somewhat depressed. He did not expect Little Yao to break through at this time, and even wanted him to prepare for comprehension at this time. Howling Sky Demon Tiger, let's stop fighting for now. We'll fight another day. As Du Xiaofu spoke, he immediately retreated. Comprehending the vain spirit was the most important thing. Looking at the retreating Du Xiaofu, the howling sky demon tiger revealed a puzzled expression. However, it only waited at the foot of the mountain and did not chase after Du Xiaofu. Hurriedly retreating, Du Xiaofu retreated to the safe zone. Within the combat realm, there was a safe zone on every level. Within the safe zone, one would not be attacked. However, once one reached the safe zone, one's points would still be deducted every 24 hours. Within the safe zone, Du Xiaofu frowned. If he went out now, he did not know where to find a safe place to comprehend. At this moment, outside the Sky Martial Seal realm, Du Xiaofu did not need to think too much to know that there would definitely be Sky Martial Academy elders waiting to capture him at any time. Let's do it here. In the end, Du Xiaofu gritted his teeth and decided. This was the 5th level of the combat realm, and there was no place to go. Comprehending here was even safer. There were not many people who could barge into the 5th level of the combat realm. Little Yao, how should I enter your runic world to comprehend? Du Xiaofu took out Little Yao from his bosom. At this moment, golden runic patterns began to appear on Little Yao's mountain-like body, and an extremely domineering aura spread out. Communicate with your vain spirit, then merge with me. Your vain spirit comes from my body, so you can enter my runic world. Be obedient and do not act rashly. Just comprehend as you see fit, Little Yao said in a childish voice. The mysterious runes on his body flashed and his aura grew denser. His childish voice said, Your spirit meridian has fused with my world of runes. My world of runes will be affected by you. Your life is also in my hands. We must have absolute trust in each other. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu immediately said, Don't worry, I believe in you. What I mean is, I'm worried about you. Little Demon did not hold back at all. Du Xiaofu looked a little embarrassed. He then said, Little Demon, don't you know me? Actually, I'm quite trustworthy. Cut the crap. Hurry up and enter my runic world. Otherwise, you'll be the one losing out. As soon as he finished speaking, a dazzling light burst out from the surface of his body, wrapping around the space around Du Xiaofu. Seeing this, Du Xiaofu's expression immediately turned serious. He sat down cross-legged and communicated with his martial vein. The mysterious runes surged and condensed into an illusory mountain peak that extended out. The illusory mountain peak was formed by 5 mountain peaks. Then, it merged with the dazzling light that spread out from Little Demon's body. Chi-la-la, as he communicated with his vain spirit and the mysterious runes that spread out from Little Demon's body merged, Du Xiaofu vaguely felt that he had entered another space. That space was covered in purple mist, as if it was the beginning of chaos. In the vast purple mist space, a huge 5-fingered mountain peak stood. The runes were dazzling, like the sun in the sky. Endless light burst out, and the pressure was terrifying, suppressing this purple mist space. Walala! The huge mountain peak was dazzling. Different changes were born, evolved, and condensed. It was as if it was given life, and a terrifying power spread out. Buzz buzz! In this purple mist space, the 5-fingered mountain peak was dazzling. Golden light surged, and there was a faint buzzing sound of wind and thunder. Dense spiritual energy was born, and it communicated with the energy of heaven and earth. It was profound. The mountain peak changed, and it communicated with the energy of heaven and earth. It gave people a feeling that this was the beginning of heaven and earth. The mysterious runes of the talismans were dazzling, and they filled the entire purple mist space. In the 5th level of the battle domain, Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged, and his body was already enveloped in a dazzling golden light. A 5-fingered mountain peak enveloped Du Xiaofu, and it was constantly born, evolving, condensing, and generating dense spiritual energy behind Du Xiaofu. It communicated with the energy of heaven and earth, and the multicolored light spread out. At this moment, If someone was able to peek, they would find that the transformation of the mountain shadow behind Du Xiaofu was exactly the same as the transformation of the mountain shadow in the purple mist space. The two of them were integrated into one and had endless transformations. Du Xiaofu began to comprehend, and he was immersed in the comprehension of the pulse spirit related to the little demon. At this moment, it was as if the little demon's comprehension had become Du Xiaofu's comprehension. The mountain peak's shadow was evolving, and there was the sound of wind and thunder. The mysterious runes of the talismans were changing, and they all revealed some kind of original energy of heaven and earth. In this process, Du Xiaofu even felt that he had not only made progress in the pulse spirit, but also in the comprehension of other profound meanings. Du Xiaofu was immersed in such comprehension, and he was intoxicated. He felt that the endless mysteries of heaven and earth were surrounding him, waiting for him to absorb and comprehend. Du Xiaofu even felt that it would not be long before he could break the shackles and enter a new world. Walala! At this moment, Du Xiaofu seemed to have transformed into a five-fingered mountain peak, and it was as if he could suppress and destroy everything. Rumble! At this moment, the entire fifth floor of the combat realm was affected. The space shook violently, and there was a rumbling sound. A mighty aura swept across the sky. As Du Xiaofu entered the fifth floor of the combat realm, the people on the fourth floor were still waiting. In everyone's imagination, the fierce kid had the strength to enter the fifth floor, but he did not necessarily have the strength to enter the fifth floor. It would not be long before he was pushed out. To be able to enter the fifth floor of the combat realm, one must have reached the true martial lord realm. Du Xiaofu was still in the pulsating realm. If he could enter the fifth floor of the combat realm, it would be too heaven-defying, and he would not want others to live. While everyone was waiting, they were gradually surprised. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 5 days. Du Xiaofu did not leave the fifth floor of the combat realm. During this period of time, something big happened in the heavenly martial seal realm. Some people discovered that they could no longer enter the fifth floor of the combat realm. It was as if something had happened, and the fifth floor had been sealed. At this moment, the elders of the academy were alerted. Some elders investigated, but they could not find anything. The other floors of the combat realm were not affected, and only the fifth floor could no longer be entered. Du Xiaofu is in the fifth floor. Could it be related to him? Could something have happened to Du Xiaofu in there? Some people began to worry, and many people who were waiting left the heavenly martial seal realm. In a certain courtyard of the heavenly martial academy, many elders were sitting upright. Their expressions were solemn, and the atmosphere was stifling. Right now, the only person we can find is Ghostclaw. That guy escaped. Elder He, whose eyes flashed with coldness. He clenched his fists and said, "We shouldn't have left him alive. If we had killed him directly, we might not have learned such a terrible lesson today." Elder Shangwan said, "Back then, we left Ghost Claw behind and sealed half of his cultivation because ordinary people could not excavate the profound ores. We discovered that the profound ores were getting harder and harder, and ordinary people would not be able to move them at all. There might be profound crystals inside. Who would have thought that when we just received news that the profound spirit, Heavenly Vine, had appeared in the profound ores? Just as we were about to head over to receive him, Elder Yu Ming met with mishap. From the looks of it, Ghost Claw wasn't the only one who killed Elder Yu Ming and dozens of teachers and students. Although Ghost Claw is strong, I'm afraid it's impossible for him to kill Elder Yu Ming alone." Elder Fu said, "Killing Elder Yu Ming and dozens of mentors and students is a provocation to our Tianwu Academy. We can't let him off." A cold glint flashed across Elder He, whose eyes. "The enforcement team has already been dispatched. General Gu Xinyan, Ghost Child, Wu Kei, and Guo Xiaofeng have already headed to the Dark Forest to investigate. No matter who it is, our Tianwu Academy can't tolerate this anymore. Otherwise, those fellows will think that Tianwu Academy is getting more and more benevolent," Elder Sun said. Time continued to pass. In the fifth level of the combat domain, Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged. The talisman inscriptions on his body shone brightly, and the vain spirit behind him was evolving. As the vain spirit evolved, the talisman inscriptions entered Du Xiaofu's body, nourishing his physical body. Immersed in comprehension, Zhang Xian was oblivious to everything around him. The aura of his vain spirit grew stronger and more terrifying. His vain spirit was evolving. Wong Wong. The sound of wind and thunder echoed continuously. Du Xiaofu's aura grew stronger and stronger, and a dazzling glow emanated from his body. In this state of comprehension, Du Xiaofu felt that he was about to achieve a breakthrough. Du Xiaofu was already on the verge of a breakthrough. It was only because of his comprehension of the vain spirit that his breakthrough was delayed. Now that his comprehension of the vain spirit was evolving, he immediately felt that he was about to achieve a breakthrough. Compress, I can't achieve a breakthrough. I have to stabilize my foundation first and make up for the side effects from my previous breakthrough. Du Xiaofu resisted the temptation to achieve a breakthrough and suppressed it. He allowed the energy to cleanse his physical body bit by bit and stabilize his cultivation. Even though he was about to achieve a breakthrough, he still chose not to do so. To Du Xiaofu, this was an extremely torturous experience. Amidst this torment, Du Xiaofu immersed himself in comprehending the vain spirit. Just like what Jin Qingchun had said, with the help of Xiao Yao, Du Xiaofu's comprehension was progressing at a rapid pace. The improvement in his comprehension of the vain spirit was indescribably terrifying. It was as though he had taken Xiao Yao's comprehension for himself. Chapter 279. Boom. On the 11th day, at the 5th level of the battle domain, in front of Du Xiaofu, the main body of the little demon mountain floated out. The mysterious runes on the talisman shone dazzlingly, and then it grew to a colossal size of several hundred feet. The mountain peak rotated, faintly blending with the phantom of the pulse spirit behind Du Xiaofu. Walala! At this moment, endless dazzling light erupted. The mysterious runes on the talisman shone with unparalleled brilliance, like the sun in the sky. At this moment, the colossal mountain peak seemed to have reached the most terrifying level. Its power caused the entire space to tremble violently, as if it wanted to suppress and destroy this part of the space. On the mountain peak, the mysterious runes on the talisman shone, and then changed continuously. Dazzling light poured down like a waterfall. Finally, amidst the strange changes, the colossal mountain peak began to change. There was a powerful life essence awakening and growing. Rumble. Powerful fluctuations spread out from the colossal mountain peak. The fluctuations were like a storm, causing the entire space to tremble violently. And at this moment, the entire battle domain began to shake. All the students in the various levels of the battle domain could feel the astonishing movements coming from an unknown place, causing them to feel uneasy for no reason. Roar. A long howl shook the heavens. The colossal mountain peak squirmed, and the light was so dazzling that it was impossible to look directly at it. At this moment, the entire space darkened, and only the light on the mountain peak became the only thing. A powerful life aura began to erupt. Then, in that dazzling light, the mountain peak squirmed and turned into a colossal ape. Roar! The ape roared, and the light was dazzling. Its entire body was wrapped in mysterious runes, and it looked sparkling and translucent. Its entire body was wrapped in multicolored light, as if it was being baptized by the energy of heaven and earth. Its body was constantly changing, filled with terrifying energy, and still in the process of metamorphosis. The mysterious runes on the talisman evolved, and the mountain peak evolved into an ape. It was full of vitality, communicating with heaven and earth, giving people the feeling of the beginning of heaven and earth and the beginning of all things. And at this moment, Du Xiaofu's pulse spirit was still connected to the ape born from the mountain peak, and they were also quietly in a strange and mysterious space. The space was ethereal, and purple chi seethed, wrapped in dazzling light. Du Xiaofu felt that he was also transforming at this moment, as if he was undergoing a nirvana transformation. This feeling was like he had experienced reincarnation and gained a new life. It was indescribably magical. From now on, he could see through the essence of all Upanishads. In midair, the ape's figure seemed to be undergoing a baptism by the energy of heaven and earth. Its entire body was sparkling and translucent. After a long time, the runes that filled the sky continuously surged into its body. Its entire body seemed to be transforming. Its body was filled with energy, and the surrounding space rippled violently. In the end, the ape landed on the ground. Its body was glistening with golden light, and the monkey hair on its head was brightly colored. Its eyes were intelligent, as if it was born with spiritual eyes, looking down on everything. A terrifying aura erupted, as if it could sweep across the four directions and suppress everything. When everything calmed down, the ape's figure shrunk, and the light receded, turning into a little macaque that was not even the size of a newborn baby. The little macaque was extremely small, and it was only the size of 2 adult palms. Its skin was glowing with a golden light, and the hair on its head was brightly colored. It was not just a pure golden color. The golden macaque retracted its aura, and its intelligent eyes stared at Du Xiaofu. Its long and dense eyelashes slightly curled up, covering a pair of bright and deep golden eyes. Its golden eyes were unpredictable, and it gave off a mysterious feeling. It also gave off a noble aura. There was a faint golden mark between the little macaque's eyebrows, and it was flickering like a flame. It gave off a mysterious feeling, and then it slowly receded. However, there was still a faint mark left between its eyebrows. If one looked closely, it looked like a 5-fingered mountain. Walala, after a long time, the golden light around Du Xiaofu's body receded, and the mountain turned into mysterious runes and drilled into his body. Everything disappeared into his body. At this moment, everything in the 5th level of the combat realm had calmed down. Rumble. As the aura around Du Xiaofu retracted, the entire 5th level of the combat realm shook violently. A dazzling light shone down from the sky, and it enveloped Du Xiaofu's body. The runes were dazzling, and a mighty pressure was emitted. Looking at the changes in the 5th level, the little macaque's gaze fell on Du Xiaofu's body. Du Xiaofu, king of the pulsating realm. As the dazzling light shone on Du Xiaofu's body, a line of runes flashed on the light screen. At this moment, every level of the combat realm shook violently, and a line of runes appeared on the light screen. Du Xiaofu, king of the pulsating realm. Inside the combat realm, everyone looked at each other as they stared at the runes on the light screen. Du Xiaofu seems to have created another record. I wonder what Du Xiaofu did in the 5th level. He actually created another record. Everyone clicked their tongues. They didn't expect Du Xiaofu to create another record. The king of the pulsating realm was recognized by the combat realm. That meant that he was invincible within the pulsating realm. Hula, as the light shrouded him, Du Xiaofu once again felt the changes in his points card. He immediately took out his points card and looked at it expectantly. At this time, the points on the card had increased from 4 million to 6 million in an instant. He had obtained another 2 million points as a reward. Before entering the rune world of the little demon, Du Xiaofu remembered that his points on his card were 2,500,000 points. He guessed that the points were deducted from his points in the combat realm. Who said that it's difficult to leave a record in the combat realm? It's actually not that difficult. Looking at the points on his card, a smile appeared on Du Xiaofu's face. He couldn't help but reveal a satisfied expression. He felt that it wasn't too difficult to leave a record in the combat realm. If someone knew that Du Xiaofu had said such a thing, they would probably want to dig a hole in the ground. This was simply not letting others live. Phew. After putting away his points card, Du Xiaofu spat out a mouthful of turbid air. A faint golden light flickered in his clear eyes. Then, he retracted his gaze and looked into the distance. There was a feeling of returning to simplicity. Although Du Xiaofu forcefully resisted the urge to break through and instead focused on cleansing his body and stabilizing his cultivation, the comfortable feeling in his body made him feel extremely carefree. He couldn't help but want to roar out loud. However, Du Xiaofu didn't roar out loud. Instead, he let out a miserable shriek and immediately retreated while rubbing the back of his head. His head felt like it was about to be smashed. As he retreated, Du Xiaofu turned around and immediately saw a little macaque behind him. The little macaque's body was glittering and translucent gold. Its eyes were bright and deep, and it looked mysterious and noble. The more he looked at it, the more he looked like a little boy. He didn't look like a macaque at all. The defense of the head is too weak. You should train your head more in the future. The little macaque stared at Du Xiaofu as it spoke. It looked like a noble king, but its voice was extremely childish. It was the voice of the little demon that Du Xiaofu was familiar with. You're the little demon? How did you become a monkey? Du Xiaofu rubbed the back of his head and stared at the little macaque. That voice was the little demon. There was no doubt about it. However, the little demon's original form was a divine stone. Du Xiaofu was puzzled as to why the little demon's original form had turned into a little macaque. He looked at the little macaque in shock and shouted, "Little demon, why did you hit me just now?" "You're the monkey. I'm the red-bone horse-ape." The little demon stared at Du Xiaofu and said, "How could it be a monkey? How could a monkey be compared to it?" It glanced at Du Xiaofu and said, "I didn't hit you. I just wanted to test the strength of your body. It's still a little weak. You can't withstand my attacks at all." "You?" Du Xiaofu stared at the little macaque and was puzzled. He thought of all the demonic beasts on the heavenly beast list and earthly beast list, but there wasn't a single red-bone horse-ape. He asked, "What is a red-bone horse-ape? A horse-ape or a monkey?" "I'm definitely not a monkey." The little demon was about to go crazy. "All right, it doesn't matter if you're a monkey or not. I'll give you a new name in the future." Du Xiaofu looked at the little demon and said, "Why do I have to change my name again?" The little demon protested. It took him a lot of effort to get used to the name Little Demon. He definitely didn't want to change it again. "Because you're already a monkey. Naturally, you have to change your name. It'll sound better." Du Xiaofu said to the little demon, "What do you think of the surname Sun?" "Sun Little Demon, I think it's not bad." "No, I don't like it. I don't want the surname Sun. In the depths of my memory, there seems to be someone with the surname Sun." "I don't want the surname Sun," the little demon protested. "Is that so?" Du Xiaofu could only bear the pain of not using the name Sun Little Demon. He then looked at the little demon and said, "Then the surname Du will be the same as me. In the future, you'll be a part of our Du family." "Du Xiaoyao, what do you think?" "Du Xiaoyao," the little demon murmured. He felt that it wasn't bad. He immediately looked at Du Xiaofu and nodded. He was afraid that if he didn't agree, he would be given a bunch of random names. He rolled his eyes and said, "Du Xiaoyao it is." Chapter 280. How did you become like this? Shouldn't your original form be a demon stone? Du Xiaofu continued to ask Du Xiaoyao curiously. Du Xiaofu was extremely curious about the fact that the demonic beast had turned into a little macaque. "Even if I tell you now, you won't understand. I'll tell you in the future. In any case, I'll tell you now. I've already broken through to the initial pulse spirit stage. If you dare to steal my treasured medicine in the future, you'll be in for it," Du Xiaoyao said, glaring at Du Xiaofu. "How could I steal your treasured medicine? I'm not that kind of person." Du Xiaofu smiled faintly, his thick, straight eyebrows rippling softly. It was as if he had been smiling all along, curved like the bright crescent moon in the night sky. His clear eyes flickered, adding a hint of unruliness to his resolute face, exuding a sense of naughtiness. "In any case, I won't trust you anymore." Du Xiaoyao did not believe Du Xiaofu's words at all. After following that savage fellow for so long, he knew very well what kind of person that fellow was. "Sai, you still don't know me that well. It's just that we haven't known each other for that long after all. I'm actually a very upright and trustworthy person. I'm righteous, unyielding to force, and unwavering in poverty. Many of my strengths are actually just like pregnancy. After some time, you'll naturally be able to see them," Du Xiaofu said with a sigh. "If you keep talking, I'm going to feel sick." Du Xiaoyao looked helplessly at Du Xiaofu, unable to listen any longer. "Fine, I won't say any more." Du Xiaofu smiled, then turned to look at the massive mountain peak ahead and mumbled softly, "Continue." A moment ago, in front of the massive mountain peak, Du Xiaofu's figure appeared once more. Roar! The massive Howling Skies demon tiger also appeared once more. Looking at Du Xiaofu, its tiger eyes revealed some doubt as it said, "Brat, you seem to have gotten stronger. Continue." Du Xiaofu did not say much. After all, this Howling Sky demon tiger was not a living creature. It was just a special kind of psychic. Looking at the giant tiger, a faint golden light flickered in his clear eyes. Waving his hand, his fist shook the space, wrapped in golden talisman mysterious runes. Roar. The howling sky demon tiger roared as runes covered its body. Once again, it engaged in a fierce battle with Du Xiaofu. One man and one tiger fought fiercely, once again locked in battle. The more Du Xiaofu fought, the braver he became. His comprehension of the meridian spirit had improved tremendously, and his strength had also increased by a lot. In the fierce battle with the howling sky demon tiger, Du Xiaofu was clearly at a disadvantage. However, at this moment, Du Xiaofu was truly able to contend with it. However, he was unable to completely suppress it. Rumble. The two collided, causing a deafening sonic boom. Runes scattered in all directions, causing Du Xiaoyao to watch with interest from afar. Oscillating fist. Stormy waves palm. Sky-shaking wings. In an evenly matched situation, Du Xiaofu displayed an incomparably ferocious side. He was even more ferocious than the howling sky demon tiger. After a series of strong attacks, even the howling sky demon tiger was forced to retreat. Evil beast. Finally, Du Xiaofu found an opportunity. Stomping his foot on the ground, his body shot out, and he sat on the back of the howling sky demon tiger with lightning speed. Roar. The howling sky demon tiger roared ferociously. That sound wave could shatter one's soul. The runes on its body surged, wanting to shatter Du Xiaofu on the tiger's back. The back of the howling sky demon tiger was definitely not something that anyone could sit on, even if it was an ordinary martial lord who had just ascended to the martial marquis realm. Under the attack of the howling sky demon tiger's roar that shook the sky and the attack of the runes on its back, they would be directly sent flying. It was simply impossible to resist that terrifying power. However, Du Xiaofu withstood it. Amidst the deafening tiger roar, although Du Xiaofu was shaken to the point of dizziness and his body felt like it was about to fall apart, he still held on tightly to the back of the howling sky demon tiger. Rock descends to the 9 heavens. A terrifying aura suddenly swept out from Du Xiaofu's body. Runes and mysterious runes formed on his back. A pair of golden rune wings carried the domineering will of the golden-winged rock. Flowing light overflowed and filled the air. It was as if the rock flapped its wings and soared to the 9 heavens. Suppress. Du Xiaofu roared and used the domineering aura of the golden-winged rock to suppress the howling sky demon tiger. Although the psychic howling sky demon tiger was powerful, it was suppressed by the aura of the golden-winged rock because it was psychic. In an instant, there were faint signs of it being suppressed. Bang, bang, bang. Using the aura of the golden-winged rock to suppress the howling sky demon tiger, Du Xiaofu stepped onto the back of the howling sky demon tiger. Then, different types of fist imprints blasted out and landed directly on the head of the howling sky demon tiger. Back in the P-square, Du Xiaofu was able to kill the Xianyun scarlet dragon, which was comparable to a martial lord, with one strike. Let alone now, it could be seen how terrifying Du Xiaofu's attack was. Rumble. The fists were like rain. Du Xiaofu's fists continuously bombarded the head of the howling sky demon tiger. Coupled with the suppression of the golden-winged rock's domineering aura, the howling sky demon tiger was like a living creature. Its ferocious head was also bombarded until its skin and flesh were lacerated and fresh blood spurted out. However, under the influence of the battle realm, the tiger blood that spurted out immediately turned into nothingness and dissipated. Under Du Xiaofu's violent bombardment, the ferocious head of the howling sky demon tiger began to explode. The runes that filled the sky shattered, and the earth shook. In the end, its aura finally withered and its eyes dimmed. Suppress. Du Xiaofu did not dare to relax. He raised his hand and clenched his fist, continuing to bombard the ferocious head of the howling sky demon tiger until it was smashed into pieces. That's quite brutal. Looking at Du Xiaofu, who used brute force to suppress and kill the howling sky demon tiger, Du Xiaoyao's pale golden spirit eyes slightly moved. Boom! After the head of the howling sky demon tiger was smashed into pieces, its enormous body also dissipated into runes and disappeared. Then, the space trembled and light enveloped the area. A ray of light that resembled a divine light appeared in the air. Rumble. At this moment, The space within the battle realm once again trembled and divine light appeared. Within the divine light, a list appeared. On the list, there were a total of 100 rankings. The battle realm list has appeared. Someone must have broken some kind of record. The appearance of the battle realm list doesn't mean that someone has created a new list. It means that someone has broken a record. The battle realm list is based on one's combat strength. Ordinary records won't be able to appear on it. Only the records that reflect one's combat strength will appear on the battle realm list. Everyone discussed in astonishment. The appearance of the battle realm list was definitely not simple. It meant that someone had used absolute combat strength to break some kind of record. Only then would the battle realm list appear. It was said that in the past hundreds and thousands of years, there was only one student in Tianwu Academy called Du Tingxian. More than 20 years ago, he had swept through everyone and broke the record of the battle realm list. His talent and potential had rushed into the top 10. It was absolutely terrifying. Look, the list is lit up. Someone has entered the list. Someone discovered that the list was lit up and runes were flickering. A newcomer had entered the battle realm list. Heavens, second place. The second place of the battle realm list is lit up. Someone has entered second place. Some people were shocked, as this newcomer on the war realm list had actually risen to second place. Du Xiaofu, it's really Du Xiaofu. He actually rushed to second place. Someone discovered that the person who had reached second place on the list was actually Du Xiaofu. After Du Xiaofu had created 2 records in a row, he had actually broken another record and even rushed to second place on the list. This was definitely terrifying. Who is this Chu Go? Du Xiaofu's gaze landed on the battle realm list. The person in first place was someone called Chu Go. As for the original 10th place, it had now dropped to 11th place. Surprisingly, the name above it was Du Tingxian. Dad, I really didn't do it on purpose. Seeing that his father's ranking had fallen by 1 place, Du Xiaofu smiled faintly. Walala! Suddenly, Du Xiaofu's points card changed again. The points that were originally over 3,600,000 instantly became over 8,600,000. He had obtained another 5 million points as a reward. In the battle realm, the higher the record one left behind, the higher the reward. However, 5 million points was enough to shock Du Xiaofu. At this moment, he had over 8 million points. Even if he were to buy elixirs and heavenly treasures in the battle realm, he would probably be able to buy a terrifying number of points. These points should be quite a lot, right? Looking at the points on his scorecard, Du Xiaofu couldn't help but reveal a satisfied expression. Looking at the points on his scorecard at this time, he felt that he seemed to have a rich and imposing feeling now. It's time to go out. I hope I won't encounter the Academy's elders. Du Xiaofu murmured softly. The battle realm list had already disappeared. He also kept his points card, thinking that it was time to leave the battle realm. After killing the howling sky demon tiger, he didn't feel any better. As for the thought of continuing to climb up, Du Xiaofu didn't even think about it. With his current cultivation and strength, it was impossible for him to do so. A moment later, when Du Xiaofu appeared at the entrance of the battle realm, he was immediately shocked. He didn't expect to be densely packed with people. Many gazes fell on him in shock, as if they were looking at a monster. Xiaofu. Just as Du Xiaofu was frowning in confusion, a clear voice rang out. A graceful woman appeared in front of Du Xiaofu. Her jet black hair was as smooth as a waterfall. Her black hair was loosely tied up, and her eyes were ethereal. Chapter 281. Du Xiaofu glanced to the side. The woman had a youthful appearance and a refined temperament. Her pitch-black eyes were as clear as a stream. She wore a loose robe that covered her body. Under her slender jade-like neck, her soft breasts were like white jade. They were half-covered, and a deep white jade cleavage was faintly discernible. Her white waist was tied up, and her slender, perfectly straight, and fit legs seemed to be silently enchanting. The person who came was the eldest sister, Du Xiaoman. Her sexy attire caused many youths in the surroundings to almost have nosebleeds. Big sister, why are you here? Du Xiaofu was puzzled. Big sister seemed to be waiting for him here. I've been waiting for you for several days. Come with me. You don't have to run around anymore unless you really want to leave Tianwu Academy. Du Xiaoman said to Du Xiaofu. At this moment, unconcealable astonishment could be seen in her eyes. She had heard about the situation in the combat territory, setting 2 records consecutively and breaking another record, rushing to 2nd place in the combat territory rankings. How terrifying was that? Big sister, what's going on? Du Xiaofu asked doubtfully. The elders already have a way to deal with you. I'll bring you to see my master, and she will tell you. Du Xiaoman gently pulled Du Xiaofu to the side and said to Du Xiaofu, you made a great contribution to the academy by defeating Guyu previously. Therefore, the academy won't make things difficult for you unless you really want to leave Tianwu Academy. Do I really want to leave Tianwu Academy? Du Xiaofu pondered. Initially, he really did want to leave Tianwu Academy. However, during this period of time, even though he had been escaping from the pursuers in Tianwu Academy, he felt an inexplicable attachment to Tianwu Academy. Every time he was captured, it was a form of training for him. The big brother, 2nd brother, 4th brother, and the bearded elder, demon transformation Swordly Yuxiao, were all people he met in the academy. There was also the Tianwu Talisman realm. That was a good place to comprehend. If he really left Tianwu Academy, he wouldn't be able to enter the Tianwu Talisman realm in the future. Du Xiaofu thought about it and felt a little reluctant. Furthermore, he had over 8 million points on him. If he were to leave Tianwu Academy, his points would be worthless. It seems like you don't really wish to leave Tianwu Academy. Come with me. Du Xiaoman held onto Du Xiaofu's arm and walked out of the Tianwu Talisman realm. A faint fragrance assailed his nostrils. Under many envious gazes, Du Xiaofu was pulled out of the Heaven Martial Talisman realm by Big Sister. Not bad. It's rare for one to appear. Outside the stone gate of the Tianwu Talisman realm, a middle-aged man was lying on a huge rock. He glanced at Du Xiaofu's back before he continued to doze off. As Du Xiaoman left, Du Xiaofu also learned about the recent situation in the academy from Du Xiaoman. It seemed that because he had taught Guyu of the Divine Light Court a lesson and made a great contribution to the academy, the elders of the academy had recently relented and did not intend to make things too difficult for him. Big sister, I didn't do that for the sake of the academy. I heard that he injured you, and I was so angry that I ran over to teach him a lesson. Du Xiaofu chuckled at the small gate. He remembered that when he was young, he would always hold Big Sister's hand tightly when they went out to play. Now that Big Sister was holding onto his arm, her faint fragrance assailed his nostrils. He couldn't help but reminisce about his childhood. Don't be so impulsive next time. What if you can't beat Guyu? What if you get injured? Du Xiaoman pulled Du Xiaofu to stand on the stone path. Her ethereal eyes stared at Du Xiaofu, but there were ripples of happiness in her eyes. Don't worry, that guy can't beat me. In any case, I won't let anyone who dares to bully Big Sister go. No one. Du Xiaofu said seriously. Looking at the girl before him, he still remembered how Big Sister and 2nd brother took care of him when he was young. Big Sister is not someone that anyone can bully, silly boy. Hearing this, Du Xiaoman's eyes could not help but ripple. Looking at the young man before her, she pinched his face and helped him tidy up his clothes. A gentle smile involuntarily appeared at the corner of her mouth as she said, "You must have suffered a lot these years, right?" "I didn't suffer. It was pretty good. It's just that after Big Sister and 2nd brother left, there was no one to take me out to play." Du Xiaofu smiled. "You're already so old. Don't just think about playing all day long. Cultivate properly, and when you succeed in your studies, I believe that 3rd uncle and 2nd uncle will be very happy." Du Xiaoman looked at the face that had already lost its childishness and helplessly sighed. She said, "I've just heard about what happened in the battlefield. You really are 3rd uncle's son. However, you should know about 3rd uncle's situation in the academy. Don't reveal your identity for now. It's best to avoid some trouble as much as possible." "Yes, I understand." Du Xiaofu nodded. He had already learned about his drunkard father's situation in the academy from Ouyang Shuang. He was ranked 2nd on the bounty list. This was not a place that ordinary people could keep. "I'm about to suffocate to death." As Du Xiaofu's words sounded, the clothes in his arms slightly squirmed as a golden light flickered. Subsequently, a faint golden little macaque appeared on Du Xiaofu's shoulder. However, it looked like a spirit child and was extremely adorable. This is, caught off guard, Du Xiaoman jumped in fright. Her eyes immediately tightly stared at the sparkling and translucent little macaque on Du Xiaofu's shoulder. A look of fondness appeared in her eyes as she said, "What a cute little macaque. Xiaofu, where did you bring this little macaque?" Du Xiaoyao, look, you're a monkey. Du Xiaofu immediately looked at Du Xiaoyao on his shoulder and said with a gloating expression, "I'm not a monkey. I'm definitely not a monkey." Du Xiaoyao was about to go crazy. It really refused to admit that it was a monkey. It can even speak, a beast lord expert? Hearing this, Du Xiaoman was shocked. A demonic beast that could speak the human language needed to be at the beast lord level. Big sister, Du Xiaoyao is not a demonic beast. It's a long story. I'll tell you later. Du Xiaofu said to Du Xiaoman. For the time being, he did not know how to explain Du Xiaoyao's existence. Isn't it a demonic beast? It looks very similar, but it's quite cute, Du Xiaoman said. The more she looked at Du Xiaoyao, the more she liked it. Then, she remembered the important matter and said to Du Xiaofu, "Let's go. I'll bring you to see my master and elder Morong first." Okay, Du Xiaofu nodded. Along the way, he asked a few more questions about Yangshuang's situation. Not long ago, Du Xiaofu learned from Li Shui that Yangshuang was in seclusion in the enlightenment state. Now, he learned from his big sister that Yangshuang had not come out of seclusion and had been in the enlightenment state for quite some time. As for Dai Xingyu's situation, Du Xiaoman did not know too much, so Du Xiaofu did not know too much. However, knowing that Dai Xingyu should be safe made Du Xiaofu feel completely relieved. As for Dai Xingyu's situation, he could only wait for Yangshuang to come out of seclusion to know. Along the way, Du Xiaofu told his big sister about the situation in Stone City, as well as the situation of Du Yunlong, who met his second brother in Lanling City. Many of the situations made Du Xiaoman frown. It seems that many things have happened in these years. When this period of time is over, I plan to go back and take a look. Du Xiaoman sighed. It had been many years since she last went back. Du Xiaofu smiled. You should go back and take a look. Big uncle misses you. By the way, Xiaofu, how much do you know about the Du family? Du Xiaoman suddenly asked Du Xiaofu. Du family? Our Du family? Du Xiaofu was stunned for a moment. He did not understand what she meant. The Du family of the Stone Dragon Empire's Du household. Du Xiaoman said to Du Xiaofu. The second and third Du Qi and Du Yunxin are both from the Du household. When the Radiant Shrine and the Stone Dragon Empire came to the academy, the Du family also followed. The Du household seems to be very powerful, but I don't know much about them. Du Xiaofu shook his head. Du Xiaoman took a deep breath, then looked at Du Xiaofu and said, the Du household has a deep relationship with our Du family. I only found out about it after I left Stone City. Back when third uncle was in Tianwu Academy in the Stone Dragon Empire, he had a deep relationship with the Du household. If it is related to my father, if it is related to our Du family, why have I never heard big uncle and second uncle mention it? When Du Xiaofu heard this, he immediately became curious, especially since this matter was related to his drunkard father. I'll tell you what I know about the Du family when the time comes. Anyway, don't trust the people from the Du family too much. Du Xiaoman finished speaking and looked at the courtyard in front of them. We have arrived. Let's go see the elder first. Du Xiaofu followed Du Xiaoman's gaze. In the lush mountain forest, there was a simple stone path crisscrossing. A simple courtyard appeared in front of them. A moment later, Du Xiaofu followed Du Xiaoman into the courtyard. Du Xiaoyao had already jumped down from Du Xiaofu's shoulder. No one knew where she went. The small hall in the courtyard was simply decorated. There was an incense burner at the door, and smoke filled the air. A fragrance assailed their nostrils. There were a few ink paintings of mountains and rivers hanging on the wall. Two people were sitting in the small hall. As Du Xiaofu and Du Xiaoman walked into the small hall, the man and woman's gaze suddenly fell on Du Xiaofu. Greetings, teacher. Greetings, Elder Morong. Du Xiaoman bowed and indicated for Du Xiaofu to also bow. She said gently, Xiaofu, this is Elder Shangwan and Elder Morong. Don't be rude. Greetings to the two elders. Du Xiaofu bowed slightly. He was not rude, nor was he too polite. He sized up the two people. The man was in his 40s, but he was extremely handsome. He was definitely a handsome man. He was waving the folding fan in his hand, which made him look even more elegant. The woman was dressed like a married woman. She was wearing a purple dress and had an extraordinary temperament. Her aura was restrained, but it made people feel oppressed. Her cultivation was not low. Chapter 282. Du Xiaofu had already learned about the identity of the man and woman from his elder sister. Both of them were elders of the academy. The elegant woman was called Shangguan Xiong and was the teacher of his elder sister, Du Xiaoman. His elder sister was also a direct disciple of Elder Shangguan and was different from the other students in Tianwu Academy. In the academy, other than the new and old students, there were also many direct disciples who took up the role of teachers and enforcers. The handsome middle-aged man was called Murong Shi. He was once a disciple of Tianwu Academy and was one of the famous ones. It was said that there were many legends about him in Tianwu Academy. Currently, Murong Shi was one of the elders in charge of the talisman department. According to Du Xiaoman, Elder Murong Shi had a close relationship with Ouyang Shuang and was Ouyang Shuang's elder. As Du Xiaofu bowed, Elder Shangguan said warmly, "No need to be so courteous. Let's sit down and talk." However, Elder Shangguan still couldn't help but be shocked when he looked at Du Xiaofu. "Thank you, Elder." Du Xiaofu didn't stand on ceremony and found a chair to sit down. "Du Xiaofu, do you know your mistake?" Murong Shi looked at Du Xiaofu. His eyes moved slightly, and his gaze was somewhat strange. "Elder, this disciple doesn't know what he did wrong?" Du Xiaofu asked. "You let 2 of the 5 seniors die and 3 cripple, stole the green bamboo spirit fruit, destroyed the herb field, arrested the enforcers, and stole their chinko bags. Do you still not admit your mistake?" Murong Shi glared at Du Xiaofu. This fellow still refused to admit his mistake even at this point. He couldn't help but feel angry. Those 5 seniors bullied others first and still don't know how to repent. However, evil people have their own retribution. They said that strength is everything, so it's not my fault. If I wasn't strong enough back then, I would be the one dead and injured right now. At that time, if a registered student died or was injured, would the academy make such a big fuss just like how they dealt with me? Could it be that a registered student was not a human? Are registered students not students of the academy? Can you just let others bully and humiliate you? Hearing this, Du Xiaofu looked straight into Murong Shi's eyes and replied with a faint smile. However, within that faint smile, a faint golden light flickered in his eyes, revealing a sharpness that could not be ignored. Murong Shi was stunned by the series of questions that appeared indifferent but were actually fierce. He naturally knew in his heart that if a registered student was killed by a senior student, it would at most be a small punishment in the end. Naturally, they would not make too much of a fuss. Although those seniors were in the wrong, you were a little too ruthless. Murong Shi retracted his expression and sighed as he looked at Du Xiaofu. Sun Ji's points were robbed because he wasn't strong enough. It was also an unwritten rule of the academy. There is nothing wrong with that. Dare I ask, Elder Murong, since Sun Ji's points were robbed, he was bullied and severely injured. In the end, one of his ears was broken. Isn't that ruthless? Du Xiaofu's expression was neither servile nor overbearing. His tone was neither fast nor slow as he continued to ask. Murong Shi's expression was slightly sluggish. He was speechless. At this moment, listening to Du Xiaofu's words, there was a feeling that 2 of the 5 seniors were dead and 3 were crippled. There was a feeling that it was right and proper. But you resisted the arrest of the law enforcement team, snatched the chinko bags, and stole the green bamboo spirit fruit. These are all wrong, right? Murong Shi glanced at Du Xiaofu and had a sullen feeling. I didn't do anything wrong. However, the law enforcement team wanted to catch me. Naturally, I had to escape. They didn't want to let me off, so I took a few chinko bags as a warning. I didn't take their lives and only hoped that they wouldn't provoke me anymore. Naturally, I didn't do anything wrong. If they didn't chase after me, I wouldn't have entered the herb field and encountered the green bamboo spirit fruit. As a newcomer to Tianwu Academy, I didn't know that it was the academy's herb field, nor did I know that the green bamboo spirit fruit was cultivated by the academy. I was severely injured, and when I saw the spirit herb, I didn't know that it belonged to the academy. Thus, I consumed it to treat my injuries. This is the instinct of a cultivator, and it is only right and proper. Dare I ask, Elder Murong Shi, how did I do anything wrong? Du Xiaofu continued. It seems like there is nothing wrong with what you said, Du Xiaoman muttered by the side. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, she felt that not only was her third brother in the wrong, he even suffered a lot of grievances. She couldn't help but feel a little sad. You sure know how to distort the truth. However, Murongxi's sullen, handsome face trembled slightly. He did not look too good. If it were not for the fact that he was an elder and had scruples about Elder Shangwan by his side, he would have already cursed it out loud. This brat was clearly full of fallacious reasoning. You sure have a sharp tongue. However, a mistake is a mistake. If you think that you're in the right, why did you run away back then? Since you ran away, it proves that you also think that you're in the wrong. Elder Shangwan looked at Du Xiaofu and smiled faintly. Du Xiaofu was taken aback. He didn't expect Elder Shangwan to be so extraordinary. He immediately replied, I ran away because I knew that the academy was unfair and that I had offended someone. If I were to be caught, the consequences would be dire. Thus, I had to run away. You little brat, Elder Morong and I aren't outsiders. Don't be so sharp-tongued with us. Elder Shangwan had no intention of listening to Du Xiaofu's quibbling. He looked at Du Xiaofu and smiled faintly. Since you're here, it proves that you still want to stay in the academy, right? Hearing Elder Shangwan's words, Du Xiaofu naturally couldn't say anything else. He nodded. Even if it was for the sake of the 8 million points in his hands, he would naturally want to stay in the academy. Since you still want to stay in the academy, you naturally have to follow the academy's rules. Since you're in the wrong, you naturally have to be punished. Otherwise, how can you convince the others? Of those 5 seniors, 2 are dead and 3 are crippled. Didn't you punish them? Elder Shangwan looked at Du Xiaofu and said, You've defeated Gu Yu and made a great contribution to the academy. Naturally, you'll be rewarded for your contributions. Elder Morong and I will discuss this with the other elders. When the time comes, you should be given a lighter punishment. However, you must not commit any more mistakes in the future. Thank you, Elder. Du Xiaofu revealed a smile in his eyes. He could tell that Elder Shangwan and Elder Morong were extremely protective of him. You can go back first. The enforcement team will no longer pursue you. Elder Morong and I will discuss this with the other elders and see how we should evaluate your contributions. Elder Shangwan said to Du Xiaofu, Don't go yet. Come with me for a while. I have some matters to discuss with you alone. Murong, she said as she stood up and walked out of the hall. Third brother, you can go first. Nothing will happen again. However, don't cause any more trouble in the academy. Du Xiaoman said. Although she didn't know what Elder Morong would discuss with Du Xiaofu, she wasn't worried. Big sister, I've always been honest. I've never caused any trouble. It's just that I'm not afraid of trouble. Du Xiaofu's eyes revealed a smile as he stood up and followed Murongxi out of the hall. After watching Du Xiaofu's figure leave, Du Xiaoman turned around and bowed to Elder Shangwan. She said, Thank you, teacher. Why are you thanking me? That kid is extraordinary. I'm afraid that the other elders have no intention of punishing him. I didn't do anything. Shangguan Xiong said with a smile. Du Xiaoman raised her head and looked at Shangguan Xiong. She said, I still have to thank you, teacher. If it weren't for you speaking up for my third brother, he wouldn't be fine now. That kid won't cause any trouble. However, the academy naturally has its own rules. We can't make too many exceptions. I'm afraid that some punishment will be inevitable. Shangguan Xiong said. The warm sunlight shone through the dense leaves, forming little golden spots of light. Under the sunlight, the towering mountains in the distance were covered in a golden coat. They looked particularly majestic and magnificent. On the top of a mountain, Murongxi stood with her hands behind her back. She looked at the mountains in front of her and said to Du Xiaofu behind her, How is Du Tingxian? Has he been well these years? Du Xiaofu followed Murongxi to the top of the mountain. He was still guessing in his heart what Elder Murongxi would say to him alone. At this moment, when he heard her words, he was suddenly shocked. His gaze fell on Murongxi's body. What? You still don't want to admit it? You're just as cunning and shameless as your bastard father. Murongxi turned her head and glared at Du Xiaofu. She said, I already know your identity. You don't have to hide it in front of me. Elder Murong knows my father? Du Xiaofu came back to his senses. Based on Ouying Shuang's relationship, This elder Morong should also know his drunkard father. If time could turn back, who would want to know that bastard? Du Xiaofu's words seemed to have touched a forbidden area in Morongxi's heart. Especially when she saw Du Xiaofu in front of her, she said rather excitedly, "Do you know that if it wasn't for the appearance of that cunning father, Du Tingxian, your surname would definitely not be Du now? If my surname isn't Du, then what is it?" Du Xiaofu asked doubtfully. "Morong, you have to follow my surname. Morong. Your mother wouldn't have been deceived by that cunning bastard, Du Tingxian, and—" The more Morong she spoke, the more agitated she became. However, she wanted to cry but had no tears. "I understand. You must have chased after my mother but lost to my father in the end, right?" Du Xiaofu suddenly understood something. He looked at Morongxi and smiled. In his heart, he was a little surprised. He couldn't tell that his drunkard father actually had such ability. When Morongxi heard this, she immediately glared at Du Xiaofu and said, "Nonsense. I wouldn't have lost in a fair competition. It was your father who cheated. If it wasn't for him, how could I have lost? I still knew Ao Tong first." Chapter 283. Du Xiaofu pursed his lips and said, "Is there a first-come, first-served basis for this kind of thing? Relationships are not like queuing up. Whoever can walk into my mother's heart first will be able to win her heart first. A loss is a loss. How can you say that I'm cheating? Little brat, what do you know about relationships? You're just like your father. Indeed, like father like son. I won't talk to you about this anymore." Mu Rongxi no longer wanted to discuss this matter with Du Xiaofu. He felt very aggrieved. Looking at Du Xiaofu, his gaze softened considerably, and then he asked, "I've heard a little about your parents' affairs these past few years. Some things are not something that ordinary people can interfere with. How has your father been these past few years?" "He's starting to like drinking, but other than that, he's fine," replied Du Xiaofu. "Liking drinking? That's right. Perhaps getting drunk will make him feel better." Mu Rongxi sighed softly. After a moment of silence, he continued to speak to Du Xiaofu. "Don't reveal your identity for now. After all, your father still has a great name on the bounty list. Avoid attracting any trouble when the time comes. In the future, don't cause any trouble in the academy. Train well. Strength is everything. If you want to do anything in the future, then the prerequisite is that you become a true expert. Your current strength is not bad, but how vast is the path of cultivation? Compared to a true expert, you are still far from enough." "This student understands," Du Xiaofu nodded. He could feel the goodwill that Elder Mu Rongxi had for him. "Call me Uncle Shi in the future. Your mother will also let you call me that," said Mu Rongxi, pursing his lips as he looked at Du Xiaofu. "Uncle Shi." Du Xiaofu hesitated for a moment, and then bowed respectfully. You can go back first. When your matter is settled, I will get someone to inform you. However, you had best be mentally prepared. I'm afraid that you will not be able to escape some punishment," said Mu Rongxi. Du Xiaofu nodded and left. He had nowhere to go, so he could only return to his dorm. That bastard's sons are all equally cunning, just more ferocious. Mu Rongxi muttered softly as she looked at Du Xiaofu's back. Then, she also left the mountain. In the courtyard of the mountain peak, the shadows of the trees danced under the sunlight. "I didn't expect him to really come from Stone City, and he's the son of that person." A tall and straight youth stood with his hands clasped behind his back. His fine long hair covered his bright forehead and hung down to his thick and long eyelashes. On his handsome face, his clear eyes were as gentle as water. Just by standing there quietly, he constantly exuded a noble and elegant temperament. This was Du Qi, who was ranked second in the last assessment. He has the blood of our Du family flowing in his veins. We should have expected him to be so strong." Du Yunxin said softly. She looked to be around 16 or 17 years old. She was wearing a light blue dress. She had a rosy face and a pair of watery eyes that were smiling. "He has the blood of our Du family flowing in his veins. He will also bring disaster to our Du family. At that time, our Du family almost didn't exist." Du Qi's expression was slightly serious. His tall and straight stature made him look even more handsome and noble. Hearing this, Du Yunxin's eyebrows slightly widened. She opened her mouth and said, that matter has already passed. As far as I know, they are all victims. According to the seniority of our Du family, he seems to be one generation higher than us. There is news from our family informing us of his identity. Should we go and pay him a visit? What a joke. How can we talk about seniority? Don't forget, our Du family and Stone City have no relationship at all. Du Chi's clear eyes moved as he said in a low voice, "At that time, we had no choice but to do so. After all, the Du family of Stone City is of the same bloodline as us." Du Yunxin's watery eyes fluctuated. She said softly, "His talent is very terrifying. If our Du family rejects him, I'm afraid it will be our loss. As I said before, if Du Xiaofu is really from that clan, I wonder if he will bring disaster to our Du family." Du Xiaofu frowned and said, "His talent is not weak. It can be said to be terrifying. But my Du family is not lacking in geniuses. With our talent, we can't even be ranked in the top 5 of the Du family. Without him, Du Xiaofu, it would be a real disaster. But we are still of the same race. Blood is thicker than water." Du Yunxin's soft voice fell. She turned around and walked away in small steps. Her light blue skirt swirled like a light blue flower. "Look, it's Du Xiaofu. He's here. It's Du Xiaofu. That fierce young man has come out of seclusion. I heard that he set 2 records in the Heaven Martial Talisman realm and broke 1 record. He's too ferocious." As Du Xiaofu walked through the academy, he immediately attracted a lot of discussion and attracted a lot of shocked gazes. "You seem to be quite popular." Du Xiaoyao came out from the middle of the road and landed on Du Xiaofu's shoulder. Her little golden tail was like a young girl's ponytail, swinging slightly. Her pair of spirit eyes were deep and clear, revealing a faint golden color, appearing noble and extraordinary. "Of course," Du Xiaofu said shamelessly. "Senior Du is back. The light of registered students, Senior Du is back." As soon as Du Xiaofu arrived at the chore office, many registered students came to greet him. In a short time, hundreds of people had gathered, and more people were on their way. "Third brother." 3 silhouettes rushed out from the crowd. Wu Qingfeng, Zhang Wei, and Sun Ji hurriedly rushed towards Du Xiaofu. Their faces were filled with excitement. The 3 of them immediately hugged Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu smiled slightly. Looking at the familiar figures in front of him, he felt quite warm in his heart. After a while, after greeting the surrounding registered students, Du Xiaofu returned to the dorm under the escort of the crowd. The room was still the same as before. It was spotless and clean. It was obvious that the eldest, second, and fourth brothers often cleaned it. After a round of greetings, Sunji looked at Du Xiaofu's shoulder and asked Du Xiaofu, "Third brother, where did you bring this monkey?" "You're the monkey. Your whole family are monkeys." Du Xiaoyao was angry. Why did everyone call her a monkey? She was clearly not a monkey. She was a divine stone. This monkey can talk. Could it be a beast realm expert? Hearing this, Sun Ji, Wu Qingfeng, and Zhang Wei immediately retreated in shock. Du Xiaofu looked at Du Xiaoyao on his shoulder and said gloatingly, "You should give up now. You're just a monkey." "Bastard, you're all monkeys." Du Xiaoyao left in anger. She couldn't be bothered with the 4 of them. Du Xiaofu smiled. Then, he briefly explained Du Xiaoyao to Sun Ji and the others. Even though what he said was both true and false, Du Xiaofu didn't intend to hide it. He had no choice but to do so. From Wu Qingfeng, Zhang Wei, and Sun Ji, Du Xiaofu found out that many things had happened in the chore house during this period of time. Jin Yambing, who was originally in charge of the chore house, was no longer there. No one knew where he went. It was said that he was punished. The old registered students were much nicer to the new registered students. Sometimes, they would even take care of them. After hearing this, Du Xiaofu smiled and didn't say anything. In the end, Du Xiaofu found out from Sun Ji that the demon extermination sword, Li Yuxiao, was really Sun Ji's cousin. However, in terms of cultivation talent, Sun Ji was far inferior to his cousin Li Yuxiao. Thus, he entered Tianwu Academy and became a registered student. Du Xiaofu could only smile bitterly. If those old students knew that Sun Ji's cousin was the demon extermination sword, even if they had 10 times the courage, they wouldn't dare to touch a single hair on Sun Ji's head. With a cousin like the demon extermination sword and Du Xiaofu in the dormitory, Sun Ji, Wu Qingfeng, and Zhang Wei had received special care during this period of time. The chores assigned to them by the chore division had decreased by a lot, and they had more time to cultivate by themselves. At this time, the three of them had all broken through to the initial stage of the Pulse Realm. Old 3, in 2 months, there will be a competition among the new students. Registered students like us can also participate. At that time, as long as we can defeat any of the official students, we will be able to become official students. Wu Qingfeng said happily. 2 months later was definitely an opportunity. Is that so? Hearing this, Du Xiaofu smiled slightly. He immediately took out a few sets of martial techniques and many elixirs from his Qinkuan bag and placed them in front of the three of them. These are mobile-grade mysterious martial techniques. These are mysterious spirit elixirs and energy source spirit elixirs. They can both improve Xinqi. There are also mobile-grade Permethom martial techniques. Seeing this, Wu Qingfeng and Zhang Wei's faces were instantly filled with shock. Du Xiaofu smiled and said, "Big brother, second brother, fourth brother, take these first. If you don't have enough, ask me for more. 2 months later, you must succeed. Cultivate well. Old 3, you don't need them for yourself?" Wu Qingfeng stared blankly at Du Xiaofu. "I don't need these. Moreover, I have a lot of them. You don't have to worry about me." Du Xiaofu smiled and said. To the current Du Xiaofu, these things were naturally a drop in the ocean. Old 3, then we won't stand on ceremony. If we stand on ceremony, it will make us seem distant. Zhang Wei no longer stood on ceremony. His eyes were filled with gratitude. Sunji said, "Big brother, second brother, take these and use them. I haven't finished the elixirs my cousin gave me last time. I haven't mastered the martial techniques yet, so I don't need them for now. Fourth brother, aren't you going to share your elixirs with us? You even gave us so many points. Old 3's things should be shared equally." Wu Qingfeng insisted. Chapter 284. Fourth bro, take it all. "You know how stubborn boss is," said Du Xiaofu with a smile. "All right." Sunji nodded, and could only take a set of martial techniques and 2 elixirs. Looking at Wu Qingfeng, Zhang Wei, and Sunji, Du Xiaofu felt warmth in his heart. This feeling was different from when he was with Big Sis and second brother, but it was still the same heartwarming feeling. The 4 brothers chatted, and before they knew it, it was already evening. The sky was filled with red clouds, dazzling with golden light. Du Xiaofu, accompanied by Wu Qingfeng and the other 2, went to the academy's bathhouse to take a clean bath. He changed into a clean purple robe with a few clouds embroidered on it. He still liked wearing purple clothes more. After washing up, Du Xiaofu immediately looked radiant, full of energy. Actually, our third bro is not bad looking. Delicate features, eyes are eyes, eyebrows are beautiful, and nose is nose. Even Sunji, Wu Qingfeng, and Zhang Wenwei were full of praise. Is there anyone who praises people like that? Du Xiaofu smiled wryly. The 4 brothers in the dormitory fooled around for quite a while, only returning to the dormitory after dusk. Junior Xiaofu. Just as the 4 of them were returning to the dormitory, a clear and charming voice rang out, and a lithe figure spitting fire instantly appeared before the 4 of Du Xiaofu. Gulp, gulp. Seeing the girl before them, Wu Qingfeng, Zhang Wei, and Sun Ji all gulped, not daring to look directly at her, their nostrils burning. That figure was too alluring. She wore a long dress with a slit, revealing her long, slender legs. Her tight, off-shoulder shirt could not hide her soft, boneless waist and the deep, white cleavage protruding from her chest. She was so hot that one could not help but want to commit a crime. "Senior sister, do you need something from me?" Just seeing this girl, Du Xiaofu's gaze was instantly filled with wariness. "Do I have to have something to talk to you about? I've just come out and I'm already able to see you. This is enough to show that we are fated. Do you want to reconsider marrying me?" Li Shui slowly walked in front of Du Xiaofu. Her delicate red lips curled up slightly in a teasing manner, causing Wu Qingfeng, Zhang Wei, and Sunji, who were standing beside her, to have a nosebleed. "Senior sister, I still have something to do. I'll take my leave first." Du Xiaofu stared blankly for a moment. Then, he turned around and ran away. He disappeared in the blink of an eye. Puff puff. Seeing Du Xiaofu leaving in a hurry, Li Shui couldn't help but laugh. Her lips curved into an extremely charming smile as she said, "This fellow is really cute." Third brother, do you know who that was? That's the dignified senior sister Li Shui, ranked 43rd on the martial roll. Third brother, you're too disappointing. You actually ran away in fear. Sai, you really don't know how lucky you are. Do you know how many people in the entire academy are chasing after senior sister Li Shui? You actually ran away in fear. A moment later, in the dormitory, Du Xiaofu was surrounded by Wu Qingfeng, Zhang Wei, and Sun Ji's gazes. Their gazes were filled with regret, and pity. That woman is not to be trifled with. It's better for me to stay away from her. Du Xiaofu bitterly smiled and said, "Eldest brother, second brother, third brother, I'm going back to my room to rest." As his voice fell, Du Xiaofu immediately closed the door and hid in his room. Sai, you really don't know how lucky you are. Looking at Du Xiaofu's tightly shut door, Wu Qingfeng and the other two could only sigh. On the bed in the room, Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged, thinking about the recent events. It took him a long time to collect his thoughts. Continue to cultivate. Only by becoming an absolute expert can I solve all my problems and see my mother and sister. Du Xiaofu murmured softly, collected his thoughts, and then immersed himself in cultivation. He began to cultivate his mental energy. Cultivating Talisman Dao's mental energy and Martial Dao complemented each other. Now that his Martial Dao had reached the peak of the complete pulsation realm, Du Xiaofu did not want to fall behind in terms of mental energy. With the tempering of the Martial Dao complementing each other, Du Xiaofu felt that the cultivation of mental energy was much easier. Of course, Du Xiaofu was very clear that the biggest reason was because he cultivated the mysterious incomplete cultivation method on the beast bone. The Tao of heaven and earth uses yin and yang to create all things. Heaven and earth, sun and moon, thunder and lightning, wind and rain. 4 seasons, male and female, hard and soft, movement and stillness. All things are divided into yin and yang. Heaven and earth view humans as mayflies, and the great Tao views heaven and earth as bubbles. Only the true nature of the primordial spirit surpasses the primordial spirit, and its essence vanishes along with the heaven and earth. However, as long as the primordial spirit exists, it is limitless. It is born from the heaven and earth. If one wants to see the primordial spirit, one must first see the light of the primordial spirit. Without the light, it is difficult to find the primordial spirit. A moment later, Du Xiaofu was immersed in his cultivation state. The unfamiliar characters in his mind revolved, and Du Xiaofu could clearly feel an enormous amount of heaven and earth energy flowing into his mind as he revolved them. A mystical white radiance slowly enveloped his body. It was like a divine radiance, emitting an oppressive aura. At night, many elders of Tianwu Academy were seated in a simple courtyard. He set 2 records and broke one. He is ranked 2nd on the Combat Realm Board. In the past 1,000 years, only Du Tingxian from 20 years ago was able to rank 10th. His talent is too terrifying. It is the fortune of our Tianwu Academy for such a young man to appear here. In the hall, all of the elders exclaimed in astonishment. Everyone, don't forget that Du Xiaofu is also a scourge. Ever since he entered the academy, the entire academy has been turned upside down because of him, Elder Fu said. There are merits and faults. However, I feel that he can't be blamed for everything that happened back then. Those seniors were too much of a bully. He was just a little too heavy-handed, Elder Shengwan said. Arresting the enforcement team, stealing the Qingkuan pouches, stealing the green bamboo spirit fruit, destroying half of the herb field, and even taking away a large amount of spiritual herbs. He has to be punished, right? Elder Fu said. That lad isn't wrong. However, since the enforcement team wanted to arrest him, he naturally had to escape. Since he couldn't shake them off, he took away a few Qingkuan pouches as a warning and didn't take their lives. This proves that he didn't disregard the academy's rules intentionally. Morongshi said calmly, if the enforcement team continued to pursue him, he wouldn't have entered the herb field out of fear and wouldn't have encountered the green bamboo spirit fruit. Since Xiongzi was new to Tianwu Academy, he naturally didn't know that the herb field belonged to the academy and that the green bamboo spirit fruit was cultivated by the academy. When he saw the spiritual herbs and didn't know that they belonged to the academy, it was only natural for him to consume the spiritual herbs to treat his injuries. Thus, even though that lad was in the wrong, elder son and I didn't keep an eye on the herb field and didn't know how that lad entered the herb field. That's right. I am also responsible for this matter. Speaking of which, we can't blame that lad entirely. Elder son made up an excuse and said to the crowd, besides, that lad has contributed greatly to the Divine Radiance Court. I believe that everyone still remembers him. At the mention of the Divine Radiance Court, the faces of all of the elders darkened. Back then, they nearly embarrassed the entire academy before the Divine Radiance Court. If that lad hadn't appeared in time, the entire Tianwu Academy would have lost face. From what I see, after arguing for so long, let's settle this matter today. Could it be that we really want to expel Du Xiaofu from the academy? I believe that if we expel him from the academy, who knows how many forces will immediately come to snatch him away. Elder He who looked at everyone and said with a serious expression, of course, with his talent, it would be a loss for our academy if he were to leave. However, if we don't deal with him, I'm afraid that it would attract criticism from those with ulterior motives and tarnish the reputation of our academy. All of the elders whispered to one another, unable to come to a decision. How about this? That lad has contributed greatly, so he won't be punished severely. However, punishment is unavoidable. If the punishment is too light, it would tarnish the reputation of our Tianwu Academy, Elder He who said. Let's do it this way. Since he destroyed the herb field and the green bamboo spirit fruit, we naturally have to make that lad pay for it. Elder Son said, Elder Son, isn't that a little too light? I'm afraid that people will gossip and say that as long as one is talented, they can do whatever they want in Tianwu Academy, Elder Fu said. Elder Liao raised his gaze and a glint flashed across his eyes. How about this? The generals at the top of the martial ranking, Gu Xinyan, Gu Hua, Wu Kei, and Guo Xiaofeng have already gone to investigate the whereabouts of the profound spirit heavenspan vine. They have also confirmed that the profound spirit heavenspan vine will be auctioned in Dark City in 7 days. After pausing for a moment, Elder Liao said, then let's have that lad take back the profound spirit heavenspan vine. Since Ghost Claw placed the profound spirit heavenspan vine in Dark City, he must be hiding in Dark City as well. Let that lad find Ghost Claw and capture him alive. That will be his punishment. Isn't it too difficult for him to capture Ghost Claw and take back the profound spirit heavenspan vine? Ghost Claw's strength is in the martial marquee realm. Furthermore, there shouldn't be only one person beside him. There should be other experts who aren't weaker than Ghost Claw, Elder Shangwan said with a grave expression. Elder Shangwan, the generals, Gu Xinyan, Gu Hua, and the others are still in the Dark Forest and Dark City. You should know that as Tianwu Academy's elders, it isn't convenient for us to enter Dark City. Otherwise, we wouldn't have sent them. We must take back the profound spirit heavenspan vine. Putting aside the fact that our Tianwu Academy has lost a precious treasure, we will also lose our reputation. Elder Liao said, given the trouble that lad has caused, if the punishment is too light, it won't be able to convince the public. However, if we can settle it now, no one will dare to say anything when the time comes. Elder Shangwan was speechless when he heard Elder Liao's words. I'm almost done with the first chapter of Tianwu Academy. The next chapter will be about Dark City. Little Yu hasn't thought of a title for this chapter yet. The next chapter will be released at around 9 o'clock. Little Yu will continue writing. Chapter 285. Early in the morning, Tianwu Academy was quiet. The first rays of sunlight pierced through the mist, and the grayish-blue dome gradually dimmed. Walala! In the dormitory, Du Xiaofu's room, a terrifying energy seeped out from the crack of the door, accompanied by an immense pressure. What's wrong with OL3? Could something have happened to him? Sunji was shocked. He stood guard outside the door, not daring to enter. OL3 should be breaking through. We can't disturb him. Stand guard for him, Zhang Wei said. OL3 must be breaking through. That fellow is truly terrifying. To be able to break through so casually, Wu Qingfeng said. Of course. Don't you know who our OL3 is? He's someone who set a record in the Tianwu Talisman realm. He even killed a scarlet cloud flood dragon with a single slap. Sun Ji said confidently. Du Xiaofu lives here, right? Outside the courtyard, a lady walked in silently. This lady looked to be around 21 or 22 years old. She was dressed in a tight-fitting outfit, and her hair was tied up in a bun. The long strands of hair on her temples served as a foil to her peerless beauty. It was just that it was difficult to see any emotions on her beautiful face. Her red lips were tender, but there was no smile that could overturn a country. It was just coldly embellished on her ice-cold face, undoubtedly telling people not to come close, making people not dare to come close. What a beautiful lady! Wu Qingfeng, Zhang Wei, and Sun Ji were stunned. This lady was not as seductive as Li Shui, but compared to Li Shui from yesterday, she was even more beautiful. OL 3 is currently cultivating. Senior, please come another day. Wu Qingfeng and the others recovered from their daze. Looking at the emblem, they realized that this beautiful lady was their senior. However, they immediately stood guard at the door, afraid that she would disturb them. I couldn't tell that the three of you are actually quite loyal. The lady raised her head, sensing the fluctuations coming from the room. If you guys continue to stand so close to him, I'm afraid that you guys will be the ones disturbing him. When Wu Qingfeng and the other two heard this, they immediately took a few steps back, afraid that they would really disturb Old Third's breakthrough. The beautiful woman no longer spoke and sat down in the hall by herself. Her unapproachable aura made Wu Qingfeng, Zhang Wei, and Sun Ji not dare to ask any questions. They could only let her sit in the hall. Walala. On the bed in the room, Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged. His entire body was enveloped in a mystical white light. It was like a white divine light. A powerful aura rippled out. Phew. After a long while, when the white light around him gradually disappeared, the vast aura around him also withdrew. Du Xiaofu immediately opened his eyes and spat out a mouthful of turbid air. 3-star perfection. Du Xiaofu's face revealed a smile as he felt the mental energy in his mind's Niwen Palace increase by several times. He did not expect that there would be another neck for a soul symbol master. After cultivating the mysterious cultivation method fragment in the beast bone, his mental energy grew like a flying sword. I wonder where that incomplete manual came from. If I can cultivate it completely, it will definitely be amazing. Du Xiaofu murmured. At this moment, the Niwen Palace in his mind was brimming with mental energy. It was as if this mental energy contained some mysterious transformations, causing the mental energy to emit an ancient and vicissitude aura, creak. The door opened and Du Xiaofu walked out of the room. Old Third, were you breaking through just now? Wu Qingfeng, Zhang Wei, and Sun Ji immediately went up to greet him. Yes, I broke through as I was cultivating. Du Xiaofu nodded his head. As if he felt something, his gaze suddenly fell on the body of the absolute beauty in the hall. The beautiful woman's tight clothes outlined her devilish curves. Her long and slender legs were seductive. Coupled with her already beautiful face, she was simply captivating. The absolute beauty's gaze also fell on Du Xiaofu's body. She slowly stood up and quickly rushed in front of Du Xiaofu. Her originally calm gaze was now filled with ripples. However, the absolute beauty forcefully suppressed her emotions in the end. Looking at Du Xiaofu, her red lips slightly parted as she said, "It's good that you're fine. Are you concerned about me?" Du Xiaofu faintly smiled. The absolute beauty in front of him was Ouyang Shuang. Yesterday, he heard from his elder sister that Ouyang Shuang was still in seclusion within the comprehension realm. She probably came out last night. Why are your words always so annoying? Ouyang Shuang glared at Du Xiaofu. This fellow was still able to tell her and Xingyu to escape when their lives were at stake. He was clearly not someone she hated and had touched her heart. However, she had never felt happy since she met him. She would only be happy if she hated him. Old Third, we still have some chores to do today. You guys chat. We'll leave first. Seeing this, Sun Ji, Zhang Wei, and Wu Qingfeng were slightly surprised. However, they seemed to have sensed something. After exchanging glances with each other, they tactfully left. Du Xiaofu nodded his head. He could only helplessly face the gazes of Sun Ji and the other two. There was simply no way for him to explain. Only then did he look at Ouyang Shuang and indifferently smiled. How did my words annoy you? Did I offend you? Ouyang Shuang seemed to be too lazy to say anything more to Du Xiaofu. Her charming face turned serious as she looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "Let's talk about serious matters. Xingyu has become a disciple and is not in the academy now." Then where did Xingyu go? Du Xiaofu was just about to ask about Dai Xingyu's situation. Hearing this, his face instantly revealed a worried expression. "Don't worry, nothing will happen. I feel that it should be Xingyu's opportunity," Ouyang Shuang said. Then, she roughly explained the situation to Du Xiaofu. It turned out that when the two of them were riding the king-scaled demonic tiger to escape, they did not dare to be too ostentatious when riding the king-scaled demonic tiger. Thus, they encountered quite a lot of trouble along the way. Fortunately, the trouble was not too big. Thus, Ouyang Shuang and the king-scaled demonic tiger were able to handle it. However, in the end, the two women and the king-scaled demonic tiger encountered an expert. The king-scaled demonic tiger was no match for the expert. At the critical moment, a beautiful woman appeared and saved the two of them. The beautiful woman hit it off with Dai Xingyu and wanted to accept Dai Xingyu as her disciple. Dai Xingyu asked the beautiful woman to look for Du Xiaofu first before she agreed to leave with the beautiful woman. That beautiful woman agreed to Xingyu's request. However, from the disciples of the Black Fiend sect, I found out that you had already escaped from the Black Fiend sect's pursuit. I guess that you might have already returned to the academy. Thus, after weighing the pros and cons, I felt that the beautiful woman was extremely powerful. Perhaps she was a great opportunity for Xingyu. Xingyu was also interested in her, and thus agreed to let Xingyu leave with the beautiful woman. Thus, I returned to Tianwu Academy and returned to Tianwu Academy. After saying everything in one breath, Ouyang Shuang took a deep breath and looked at Du Xiaofu before continuing. Who would have thought that I wouldn't be able to find you after returning to the academy? Thus, I asked Uncle Shi to return to the dark forest to look for you. However, the result was the same. You were no longer in the dark forest, and the people from the Black Fiend sect were still searching for you everywhere. When I returned to the academy, I had already heard of your glorious deeds in the academy. You are very famous. Seems like Xingyu has her own opportunity. This is good as well. Who knows, it might be better than staying in Tianwu Academy. Du Xiaofu pondered. This might be Dai Xingyu's opportunity as well. It seems like you have agreed to it? Ouyang Shuang continued. I was still a little afraid that you wouldn't agree to it. Du Xiaofu glanced at Ouyang Shuang and said, Why would I disagree? This is also Xingyu's opportunity. As long as she is well, it's enough. Ouyang Shuang smiled. After that, she looked at Du Xiaofu and said, Actually, I came here today because I have other news to tell you. Sister Xiaoman was supposed to come with me, but the enforcement team had something to do at the last minute. Thus, I had to come alone. Du Xiaofu pondered for a moment, and his brows twitched. After that, he looked at Ouyang Shuang and smiled. Those elders should have come to a conclusion on my punishment, right? And Ouyang Shuang nodded. After that, she said to Du Xiaofu, We will talk about your punishment on the way. Right now, we need to go to the Dark City. The flying demonic beasts are already waiting for us. We have to set off immediately. Otherwise, we might not be able to make it in time. This time, I will accompany you. Forget about the flying demonic beasts. It's better for me to bring the king-scaled demonic tiger. Du Xiaofu said, All right, but we have to set off now. If we are late, we might not be able to make it in time. Ouyang Shuang said. Du Xiaofu nodded. Although he didn't know why they were going to the Dark City, he naturally believed in Ouyang Shuang. After a moment, when Du Xiaofu found Du Xiaoao, Ouyang Shuang's beautiful eyes lit up. Looking at the crystal-clear and noble Du Xiaoyao, she couldn't help but say, What a beautiful monkey. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu immediately looked at Du Xiaoyao with a faint smile. The gaze in his eyes clearly said, See, I told you that you are a monkey. Du Xiaoyao was about to cry. She didn't want to explain anymore. She fiercely glared at Du Xiaofu and Ouyang Shuang. Her pale golden eyes were filled with grievance as she said, I hate you too. Beast Marquis Realm. Hearing this, Ouyang Shuang's beautiful eyes trembled. A demonic beast that could speak human language was definitely at the martial Marquis Realm. He is not a demonic beast. You can call him Du Xiaoyao. Du Xiaofu smiled, roared. The king's scaled demonic tiger roared, flapped its wings, and soared into the sky. After leaving a message for Wu Qingfeng, Zhang Wei, and Sun Ji, Du Xiaofu rode on the king's scaled demonic tiger and left Tianwu Academy. On the back of the king's scaled demonic tiger, Ouyang Shuang was still curiously sizing up Du Xiaoyao. No matter how she looked at it, it seemed to be a monkey. Chapter 286. How have the elders of the academy decided to punish me? Du Xiaofu asked Ouyang Shuang. Only then did Ouyang Shuang retract her gaze from Du Xiaoyao, her expression turning solemn as she said to Du Xiaofu, "You're fine now. The elders have already discussed and decided to let you capture Ghost Claw and take back the profound spirit Heavenly Vine. At that time, they will not make things difficult for you." Ghost Claw, profound spirit Heavenly Vine. Du Xiaofu looked suspiciously at Ouyang Shuang and asked, "What are these?" Ghost Claw is a villain of the Dark Forest. It is said that he has the strength of the martial lord realm. In the entire Dark Forest, he is also a notorious figure. His methods are cruel and merciless. In addition, he cultivates the Ghost Claw art. Thus, over time, he gained the name Ghost Claw. Not long ago, Ghost Claw was captured by the combined forces of General Endless Rivers and Spirited Jade Maiden Gu Xinyan. However, in the end, he was imprisoned in the Academy's magnetite mine to excavate magnetite. Ouyang Shuang continued, but unexpectedly, Ghost Claw somehow broke through the seal and recovered his cultivation. Furthermore, with someone helping him, not only did he snatch away the profound spirit Heavenly Vine that had just been excavated from the magnetite mine, he also killed an elder and several dozen students. Profound spirit Heavenly Vine. Sounds familiar. I seem to have heard of it before. Du Xiaofu mumbled softly. The profound spirit Heavenly Vine is a material for forging weapons. It is a heavenly treasure that can be used to forge Dao weapons. Its value is even higher than the green bamboo spirit fruit. Ouyang Shuang said, "Dao weapon." Du Xiaofu frowned slightly. Above spirit weapons were practitioner weapons, and above that were Dao weapons. It was said that even the most elite experts would find it difficult to possess a Dao weapon. The value of a material for forging a practitioner weapon could be imagined. It was not strange that it was even higher than the green bamboo spirit fruit. Its true value was probably not something the green bamboo spirit fruit could compare to. Not long ago, there was news from the Dark City that the profound spirit Heavenly Vine would be auctioned off soon. There was also news spreading throughout the Dark Forest that the profound spirit Heavenly Vine came from Tianwu Academy. Thus, the elders of the Academy hope that you can capture Ghastly Claw and retrieve the profound spirit Heavenly Vine. Ouyang Shuang told Du Xiaofu, "That is why we are rushing to Dark Town. There are still 6 days until the auction of the mysterious spirit Sky Vine. The general, Gu Xinyan, Ghost Baby, Wu Kei, and Guo Xiaofeng should all be heading to Dark Town. We need to meet up with them and then move together." It's a little strange. Du Xiaofu was somewhat puzzled. "What's strange?" Ouyang Shuang asked. "Don't you find it strange? Ghastly Claw killed so many people from the Academy and even snatched the treasure of the Academy. Why would he auction off the profound spirit Heavenly Vine in the Dark City? If it were me, I would have hidden far away." Du Xiaofu voiced out the doubts in his heart. There's nothing strange about it. The Dark Forest is a paradise of crime and chaos. No one can interfere in it. Furthermore, Ghastly Claw knows that the elders of the Academy can't enter the Dark City. Ouyang Shuang said, "Why can't the dean enter the Dark City?" Du Xiaofu was aware of the chaos in the Dark Forest. However, it was inconvenient for the elders of the Academy to enter the Dark Forest. Therefore, Du Xiaofu was puzzled. The Dark Forest is huge. Other than the Dark City, there are many other cities that are occupied by various powers. The Dark Forest is a place where crooks and honest folk mix together. There are also many experts among them. Thus, the most repulsive thing for an official power to enter such a place is none other than the entry of an official power. Ouyang Shuang licked her dry red lips and hurriedly continued, "If the elders of the Academy enter the Dark City, they will immediately arouse the suspicion of the various powers in the Dark Forest. Even if the elders of the academy manage to kill Ghastly Claw in the Dark City, the various powers in the Dark Forest will immediately join forces to deal with Tianwu Academy. If the entire Dark Forest were to join forces, even the Academy would have to be wary. That's a little troublesome. Du Xiaofu naturally understood what Ouyang Shuang said. Naturally, the Dark Forest was a place where official powers were the most repulsive. However, Du Xiaofu still felt that something was amiss. Since Ghastly Claw managed to escape and snatch the treasure, and even made such a big fuss about it, it was clear that he was intentionally going against Tianwu Academy. This didn't seem to benefit him at all. For a vicious and merciless person, he wouldn't do something that didn't benefit him. If the elders don't make a move, it won't be easy for us to capture Ghastly Claw in the Dark City, Du Xiaofu said. Ouyang Shuang knitted her brows and said, it shouldn't be a problem. As long as we can find Ghastly Claw, we will have a chance. Previously, Ghastly Claw was captured by the joint forces of the General and Gu Xinyan. Furthermore, Gue Hua, Wu Kei, and Guo Xiaofeng joined forces this time. The top 5 on the martial ranking, they must be very strong. Du Xiaofu raised his gaze. The 5 of them were experts ranked in the top 5 on the martial ranking. The moment he entered the academy, he saw their names. You're very strong now, and your reputation isn't beneath the 5 of them. Ouyang Shuang glanced at Du Xiaofu and muttered, I really don't know how you cultivate to be able to raise your strength so quickly. I'm very hardworking and kind. The heavens reward the diligent, so it's not strange for my strength to increase faster. Du Xiaofu laughed shamelessly. Shameless. Ouyang Shuang couldn't help but say, you're right. Shameless. Du Xiaoyao also scolded in front of the king's scaled demonic tiger's forehead, then turned around and looked forward. Puffed. Du Xiaoyao's scolding made Ouyang Shuang burst out laughing. Damn monkey. Du Xiaofu couldn't help but stare at Du Xiaoyao. Are there any people from the Black Fiend sect in the Dark City? Suddenly, Du Xiaofu looked at Ouyang Shuang and asked, a faint chill spreading out from his eyes. There should be. Ouyang Shuang nodded, then gave Du Xiaofu a brief introduction of the situation in the Dark City. The Dark City was one of the largest cities in the entire Dark Forest. Various major forces in the Dark Forest were entrenched here. With the Dark City as their foundation, their influence spread out to all parts of the Dark City. The Dark City was also the most lively place in the entire Dark Forest. There were many hidden dragons and crouching tigers. It was said that many famous villains lived in the Dark City. It was possible to meet an inconspicuous person on the streets of the Dark City. Perhaps he was an expert whose name had once shaken the continent. Therefore, although it was said that strength was respected in the Dark City, one's eyesight was also quite important. There was a chance that one would meet someone that one couldn't afford to offend. Among the densely packed buildings, there was an inconspicuous deep courtyard. In the room, there was a pure woman's voice, and one could smell the strange scent of a woman's body. On the bed, a voluptuous woman was naked. When a skinny old man hugged her smooth waist, his eyes were almost dizzy. He eagerly searched for her lips, wanting to taste her tongue. Don't. But at this time, the woman became stingy. She clenched her teeth and only revealed a little of her tongue. The skinny old man's tongue could only touch it, but couldn't suck it. This made the skinny old man extremely anxious. Don't hide. I'll reward you heavily later. As the skinny old man spoke, he anxiously gnawed on her tongue. That's what you said. The woman was immediately satisfied. She directly reached her hand to the skinny old man's waist and skillfully grabbed his thing. Ouch! The skinny old man immediately cried out in pain. He felt as if every strand of his hair and fingernails had swelled up. That thing seemed to be filled with air and was about to explode. He immediately hugged the woman tightly in front of his chest. His entire body was filled with an irritable heat that could not be dispelled. A moment later, there was a burst of decadent sounds in the room. It took a long time for it to dissipate. Creak! The door opened and a skinny old man with messy clothes walked out. Through the crack in the door, one could vaguely see a naked body on the bed. There was blood flowing out from the woman's body. There was no sign of life in her body. It's best not to be too ostentatious during this special period. There are many people looking for you now. especially those from Tianwu Academy. A black-clothed old man appeared beside the skinny old man. This person was wearing a mask, and his appearance could not be clearly seen. However, his eyes contained a faint chill. They were as dark and sinister as a poisonous snake, causing one's hair to stand on end and one's heart to feel a chill for no reason when one looked at him. "Don't worry, it's already settled," the skinny old man said. He looked to be in his 50s and was all skin and bones. His eyes were sunken into his eye sockets, and there was a tinge of red in his eyes. At this moment, his hands seemed to be stained with blood. He licked the blood stains on his fingertips and said, "When a woman is at her most comfortable, she won't even know when she's dead. She might even think that she's dreaming." "I've received news that many people from Tianwu Academy have arrived at Dark City," the black-robed old man said with a sinister voice. "Good that they're here. Are the two people I want here yet?" A sharp killing intent flashed in the skinny old man's eyes, and he clenched his hands tightly. "Not yet, but they should be here soon. The two people who wanted to deal with you back then are here," the black-robed old man said. "Hee. Come, kill the man. The woman is a top-notch one, so leave her for me to slowly enjoy. Dark City isn't Tianwu Academy. Do those brats really think that I'm that easy to deal with?" The skinny old man sneered, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. How could he not take revenge for being captured back then? "There's more. I'm currently writing." Chapter 287. Roar. In midair, the king's scaled demon tiger flapped its wings and cut through the air. Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged on its back. With Du Xiaofu's current cultivation and strength, he had to hurry to the Dark City, so he did not have to be too afraid of anyone finding trouble with him. Once he reached the borders of the Dark City, there was no need to be afraid of restraining himself. Therefore, Du Xiaofu spent his free time cultivating his mental energy. His entire body was enveloped in a white divine glow, an ancient aura spreading out, causing Yangshuang's slender brows to furrow slightly. That aura made her soul feel extremely oppressed, as if it was about to be suppressed. Huff. The white divine glow suddenly retracted. Du Xiaofu stopped cultivating, exhaling a mouthful of turbid qi from his abdomen. Then, his eyes opened, a bright light flashing in his clear eyes as he gazed into the distance in puzzlement. "What's wrong?" Yangshuang, who was sitting cross-legged, also stopped cultivating. Her large eyes gazed at Du Xiaofu, her bright pupils moving slightly. "There seems to be some people fighting up ahead," Du Xiaofu said. While cultivating mental energy, the release of mental energy would also allow one to sense the fluctuations in the surrounding air, allowing one to probe further. It's not strange for there to be people fighting in the dark forest. It would be strange if there wasn't. After Yangshuang finished speaking, she looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "Right, I almost forgot to tell you something." "What is it?" Du Xiaofu asked. It was indeed not strange for there to be people fighting in the dark forest. Just as Yangshuang had said, it would be strange if there wasn't. Looking at Du Xiaofu, Yangshuang said, "The elder's punishment for you, besides letting you capture the ghost claw and take back the mysterious spirit heavenly vine, said that you destroyed half of the herb farm and stole many other spiritual herbs. They want you to take responsibility for it." "Why should I pay for it? I only ate the green bamboo spirit fruit. The rest were eaten by Du Xiaoyao." Du Xiaofu's face darkened. "What does it have to do with me? You were the one who told me to eat it. If you have the ability, then return the green bamboo spirit fruit to me. I'll let you eat the other spirit medicines." Hearing this, Du Xiaoyao immediately turned around and glared at Du Xiaofu. "You." Du Xiaofu was immediately depressed. "Du Xiaoyao, don't be so smug. I took advantage of you, but in the end, I still have to clean up your mess." Looking at Du Xiaofu and Du Xiaoyao, Yangshuang felt more and more puzzled. Just what did this man and monkey do in the medicinal field? Aside from the green bamboo spirit fruit, to what extent did they destroy the medicinal field to the point that every time Uncle Shi mentioned it, his chest would ache faintly? "Don't worry, the elders didn't ask you to pay for it. They just went through the process. You don't have to be so nervous," Yangshuang said to Du Xiaofu. She sighed inwardly. His father, Du Tingxian, had snatched away the mighty Huang pellet. Now, The green bamboo spirit fruit was stolen by his son. Tianwu Academy must be at odds with this pair of father and son. I don't have to pay for it? Du Xiaofu's expression immediately turned better. That's right. Ouyang Shuang nodded and said to Du Xiaofu, I heard from Uncle Shi that the elders only agreed to deduct the points from your point card. It seems like the elders still dote on you and can't bear to punish you. What? Say that again? In an instant, Du Xiaofu's face turned green as he stared at Ouyang Shuang. The elders only agreed to deduct the points from your point card. What's wrong? Don't the elders dote on you enough? Ouyang Shuang asked doubtfully. Du Xiaofu's face turned completely green. He immediately took out the points card from his bosom and inserted his profound qi. After that, the runes on the points card flickered. The balance had unknowingly turned to 0, and all of the points had completely disappeared. Doting on them, my *s. Is this doting? Those bastards, HHH. Du Xiaofu was driven mad. Looking at the remaining points on the points card, his green face immediately turned pale. He danced and roared loudly, startling a large number of birds in the forest and causing them to spread their wings and fly out. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's heart was shattered. He could almost hear the sound of his heart breaking. A total of more than 8 million points. How many treasures and elixirs could he buy with that? More than 8 million points had been silently wiped out by those bastards, leaving not a single point behind. How could Du Xiaofu not go crazy at this time? It's just a few points. What are you doing? Just earn some points later. Ouyang Shuang looked at Du Xiaofu doubtfully. This guy seemed to have lost millions of points all of a sudden. Wasn't it just a few points? In Ouyang Shuang's imagination, Du Xiaofu shouldn't have many points on him. Let him calm down. I saw that there were more than 8 million points on his point card last time. It should be quite a lot. Du Xiaoyao turned her head and said to Ouyang Shuang in a neither fast nor slow manner. Then, she looked at Du Xiaofu with a face full of schadenfreude. There was a smile in her golden spirit eyes as she said, Serves you right. Now you are dumbfounded. More than 8 million. Hearing Du Xiaoyao's words, Ouyang Shuang was dumbfounded. I'm not a gentleman if I don't take revenge. I'll talk about it when I get back. Du Xiaofu was driven mad. More than 8 million points. The more he thought about it, the more his heart ached. The dark forest was covered in a sea of trees. From time to time, one could see verdant mountains, brown cliffs, and towering trees. It was as though the forest was covered in clouds. Rumble. In the dense forest, there were deep sonic booms. Huge rocks were shattered and soil was sent flying. From time to time, towering trees would be snapped in half. The 8 young men and women with the emblem of Tianwu Academy on their shoulders burst forth with vigorous mystic qi. All of them were at the perfect level of the pulsation realm. 2 of them were at the peak of the pulsation realm, and only one of them was at the initial level of the pulsation realm. TSK, they can't hold on any longer. Kill them. The Tianwu Academy disciples have gained quite a lot from them. Those 2 girls will be yours, and this one will be mine. A plump old man dressed in tight clothes said to the 30 or so people surrounding the Tianwu Academy students. A lustful glint flickered in his eyes as he stared at the initial pulse spirit realm female from the Tianwu Academy. Wielding a sword, the female had her hair tied up in a ponytail. She was dressed in tight clothes that accentuated her exquisite figure. She had a pretty face and a pair of bright eyes. Even if she was outside, she would definitely attract the attention of others. She was Tianwu Academy's Zhang Lu. At this moment, Zhang Lu was clearly injured. Faint traces of blood could be seen seeping out from the corner of her lips. How could Zhang Lu endure it when she heard the fat old man's vulgar words? Profound energy surged out explosively from her body, and her long sword drew out many sword flowers as it flicked towards the fat old man. Numerous sword lights spread out along with talisman markings, and their might was extremely fierce and forceful. Initial pulse spirit realm, but your strength is comparable to a pulse spirit realm cultivator. As expected of a Tianwu Academy disciple. I like it, the plump old man sneered. However, he wasn't too bothered by Zhang Lu's words. He waved his hand, and an energy rune pillar collided with Zhang Lu's sword qi. Bang! With a dull sound, the rune on the sword qi shattered. Energy ripples spread out, and Zhang Lu's beautiful figure was sent crashing down to the ground. Chi Lala. When her delicate body fell, Zhang Lu's body immediately moved horizontally, stabbing the sword in her hand into the ground. The sharp sword aura directly swept away a large area of the soil on the ground. When her delicate body landed on the ground, she did not directly smash into the ground. However, her footsteps were still shaken and she staggered back. Dark red blood once again overflowed from the corner of her mouth. On the other hand, the plump old man wasn't affected at all. Gulp. At the same time, Zhang Lu's expression changed slightly. She communicated with her martial vein and activated her pulse spirit. A green wind swallow demon soul was formed, and it carried an astonishing amount of energy as it charged towards the plump old man. "You're overestimating yourself," the plump old man shouted. A fist seal suddenly condensed and runes appeared. The space in front of the fist seal was distorted, and it directly bombarded Zhang Lu's pulse spirit. An astonishing amount of energy ripples suddenly fluctuated. It didn't take long for Zhang Lu's pulse spirit to be destroyed. Pucci. With her pulse spirit destroyed, Zhang Lu's complexion turned pale, and she spurted out a mouthful of blood. "Little girl, surrender. If you surrender, I can spare your life. Otherwise, don't blame me, Black Panther, for not knowing how to show mercy to the fairer sex." The plump old man sneered. "Dream on. Wait for the experts of my academy to come. They'll crush your bones and scatter your ashes." Zhang Lu said. Blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. She knew that even if she surrendered, with the nature and cruel means of these people, everyone would suffer a fate worse than death in battle. "Humph, ungrateful girl. I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you," the plump old man shouted. His eyes flashed with coldness. His figure pounced down. The runes in his hand spread out and condensed into a rune energy. It directly charged towards Zhang Lu. Boom. Wherever the rune energy light passed, the air violently trembled. Looking at the rune energy rushing towards her, Zhang Lu clenched her teeth. The last of her profound qi gushed out. She waved her sword, and a sword light immediately met the rune light. Clang. A crisp sound accompanied by an astonishing energy spread out. When the two collided, the space violently trembled. The sword light was destroyed, and the treasured sword was bent. Zhang Lu's beautiful figure also fiercely staggered back. With every step she took back, the ground under her feet cracked and shattered. Stomp! Stomp! After 7 consecutive steps, Zhang Lu spurted out a mouthful of blood. Finally, her delicate body couldn't support herself and fell to the ground. "You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Now you're obedient." An indifferent voice sounded. The plump old man took the opportunity to pounce in front of Zhang Lu. He waved his hand, and a claw print directly grabbed Zhang Lu's neck. Chapter 288. With the last bit of profound qi in her body exhausted, Zhang Lu was powerless to dodge. The other 7 members of Tianwu Academy were also in a precarious situation, and it was impossible for them to save her. More importantly, none of them had the strength to save her. Qi. Just as Zhang Lu was about to fall into despair, a faint golden energy suddenly swept across the sky and collided with the claws of the plump old man. Bang! The plump old man's expression changed drastically when the energy collided, following which, the energy exploded and his plump body was sent flying. Zhang Lu was shocked. A familiar voice that she seemed to have heard before sounded in her ears. "Senior sister, how are your injuries?" Hearing the voice, Zhang Lu immediately turned around and saw the familiar face of a young man. He was resolute and determined, and the curve of his lips revealed a hint of mischief. "It's you, Du Xiaofu." Zhang Lu was astonished. She naturally wouldn't forget the young man before her. It was impossible for her to forget that ferocious young man. "How dare you touch a member of my Tianwu Academy? You're courting death." Ouyang Shuang roared as she unsheathed her sword and joined the battle. Roar! The king's scaled demonic tiger roared thunderously as it pounced into the battle. The surrounding towering trees were snapped by the king's scaled demonic tiger with a flap of its wings. After devouring a scarlet cloud dragon on the heavenly beast ranking, The king-scaled demonic tiger had obtained astonishing benefits. Its cultivation had risen from the nirvana realm to the pinnacle of the pulse spirit realm. It was probably only a matter of time before it made another breakthrough. After devouring a scarlet cloud dragon on the heavenly beast ranking, not only did the king-scaled demonic tiger obtain benefits in terms of cultivation, it also seemed to have gained many other benefits in terms of comprehension. Rumble. The king-scaled demonic tiger unfurled its wings and struck out. The might it exuded shook one's soul, and the pressure of a demonic beast king spread out. It was as though two huge tornadoes had formed. With just a few flaps of its wings, several of the Tianwu Academy students were smashed into a mist of blood. Roar! The ferocious tiger opened its mouth, and before two burly men could react, they were devoured by the king-scaled demonic tiger. Those who touch a member of my Tianwu Academy will be killed without mercy. Suddenly, there was another loud shout in the air. Whoosh whoosh! At the same time, 10 flowing light figures appeared in the sky in a few flashes. Waves of aura immediately suppressed the sky, causing the surrounding forest to churn. Chi-Chi. As the last word of the shout fell, 2 figures suddenly landed beside Du Xiaofu and Zhang Lu. 2 indistinct auras that were about to burst out spread out and engulfed the area. Du Xiaofu's eyes flickered when he saw the 2 approaching. Du Xiaofu knew both of them. One of them was the cousin of Sun Ji, who was ranked 15th on the martial roll, Li Yuxiao, whom he had fought before. However, Du Xiaofu could sense that Li Yuxiao's aura seemed to have an inexplicable feeling compared to a few months ago. The other yellow-robed young man also had an extraordinary heroic spirit. His aura had reached the nirvana realm of the pulse spirit realm. Du Xiaofu was familiar with this person as he had fought with him before. He was ranked 30th on the martial roll and was known as the space-shattering fist, Luo Tianqin. You guys are finally here. That guy is Black Panther Wu Guangwen, ranked 95th on the bounty board. He has already killed 2 of our people. Zhang Lu looked at Du Xiaofu, Li Yuxiao, Luo Tianqin, and the rest and heaved a sigh of relief. Kill. Hearing Zhang Lu's words, the space-shattering fist Luo Tianqin's expression turned cold. Without any delay, he shouted at the 8 people behind him and stomped his foot on the ground. He immediately dashed into the battle circle, leaving the fat old man to Li Yuxiao. Then, he threw a punch at the nearest burly man. Rumble. Under Luo Tianqin's punch, runes burst forth and instantly killed his opponent. Kill. The auras of the 8 people behind Luo Tianqin surged as light spiraled out. Together with the flickering of runes, they were like 8 balls of light that swooped down. Numerous offensive talismans enveloped them, causing the surrounding air to explode. Their profound auras blossomed as they made their move. When the Tianwu Academy students made their move, their every move was powerful. As they joined the fray, screams of agony could be heard from the battle circle. The 30 people who were suppressing the Tianwu Academy students instantly lost their ability to resist. Even Cui Baohun was quickly killed by the elite students of the Tianwu Academy. Senior Zhang Lu, you said that guy is on the wanted list. Are there any reward points for killing him? Du Xiaofu immediately looked at Zhang Lu and asked after hearing her words. Zhang Lu had already been helped up by Du Xiaofu. When she heard Du Xiaofu's words, a puzzled expression appeared on her face. Of course, there should be quite a few. Not good. Faced with this sudden turn of events, Black Panther Wu Guangwen's expression changed drastically in an instant. Tianwu Academy really did send experts. Every single one of them was extremely terrifying, and they were definitely the top students. How could Wu Guangwen dare to fight against Black Panther? He immediately tried to escape. No one is allowed to snatch him from me. This Black Panther is mine. Du Xiaofu shouted loudly. He took a step forward and rushed out. His figure suddenly stomped the ground and soared into the sky. Boom! Du Xiaofu's body was wrapped in a pale golden glow as a tyrannical and formidable aura swept out from within his body. He was like a great rock soaring into the sky with its wings spread. With one hand, he directly grabbed the black leopard's foot and forcefully pulled it down from the sky. Pulsating realm aura. How can he be so powerful? Black Panther Wu Guangwen was astonished. The youth chasing after him only had the aura of the pulsating realm, but it was extremely ferocious. Profound energy erupted from Wu Guangwen's body as the runes around him surged. Black Panther Wu Guangwen wanted to struggle free from Du Xiaofu, but he realized that the youth was like an immovable mountain. In the end, he was forcefully pulled down by Du Xiaofu. Bang! Du Xiaofu's figure fell, and both his feet landed on the ground. The ground shook as if there was an earthquake, and cracks spread out from the center of his feet. His ferocious aura was fully displayed. Bang! The moment Du Xiaofu landed on the ground, he directly swept Wu Guangwen, sending him crashing into a towering tree nearby. Rumble! The towering tree cracked and crumbled. From the point of impact, it cracked and fell, causing leaves to swirl in the air. Poochie! Blood gushed out from the pitiful Black Panther's mouth. His body was like a kite with a broken string as he heavily smashed into the towering tree. In the end, he bounced back and fell to the ground, causing the earth to quake and mountains to shake. Cracks spread out from where his body landed. Senior sister, will the reward points be higher if he's alive? Du Xiaofu looked at Zhonglu from afar and asked. Looking at Du Xiaofu's ferocious scene, Zhonglu was so shocked that she could not recover. Hearing his question, she was still a little dazed. She swallowed her saliva and said, the reward points are the same regardless of whether he's dead or alive. As long as we can confirm his identity, it's fine. Is it the same? Du Xiaofu seemed to be a little disappointed. He took a step forward and stomped his foot on Black Panther Wu Guangwen's chest. Poochie! The sound of bones breaking was accompanied by a spurt of blood. Black Panther Wu Guangwen's eyes shrunk in despair. His life was instantly crushed, and he was deader than dead. That fellow is getting more and more ferocious. The surrounding Tianwu Academy students had already dealt with the dozens of people. Looking at Du Xiaofu's ferocious manner, they were all shocked and their eyes shrunk. Du Xiaofu reached out and took out a Chinkuan bag from Black Panther Wu Guangwen's chest. Then, with a flick of his sleeves, he kept it without leaving a trace. We meet again. Your strength seems to have increased by quite a bit. Li Yuxiao looked at Du Xiaofu as the dark red light in his eyes fluctuated. There was an indescribable majesty and devilish evil in his eyes. Du Xiaofu glanced at Li Yuxiao. Sensing the aura on Li Yuxiao's body, he raised his eyebrows and said, Don't say that every time you see me. Your strength seems to have improved by quite a bit, right? I just broke through to the martial marquee realm half a month ago. I still have to thank you. If I didn't exchange blows with you the last time, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to break through to the martial marquee realm so quickly. Li Yuxiao looked at Du Xiaofu and smiled. His dark red eyes moved slightly as he said, I know you didn't have enough fun the last time, and neither did I. When we have time, how about we spar again? Martial Marquee Realm. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's heart trembled. The Martial Marquee Realm was a level that Du Xiaofu could not reach for the time being. But when he thought of the 8 million points, Du Xiaofu's heart started to bleed. How could he have the time to spar with Li Yuxiao? He said weakly, Let's spar when we have time. Are you all right? Ouyang Shuang came to Du Xiaofu's side and nodded to Li Yuxiao. Then, she asked Zhonglu, Senior Zhonglu, why are you here? You even met Black Panther Wu Guangwen. We met by accident and almost died. Fortunately, you came in time. Zhonglu's heart still had lingering fear as she smiled bitterly. At this moment, she could not help but heave a deep sigh of relief as she stuffed a few healing pills into her mouth. Li Yuxiao said to Zhonglu, After we saw your distress signal, we hurried over. It's 7. I'm tired. Xiaoyu is going to sleep for a while. Chapter 289. Only now did Zhonglu remember something. She immediately turned to Du Xiaofu, Li Yuxiao, Ouyang Shuang, Luo Tianqin, and the others and said, The distress signal was not sent by us, it was Wu Quebec. You guys came at the right time. Quickly enter the Dark City. Wu Kei discovered Ghost Claw's trail and chased him into the Dark City, but he was afraid that he could not deal with Ghost Claw alone. So he sent out a distress signal and asked us to wait nearby to see if anyone else from the academy was there. Li Yuxiao's long red hair fell over his shoulders. Hearing this, his brows twitched as he looked quietly at Zhonglu and said, Wu Kei should be with Ghost Claw, right? Zhonglu shook her head and said, They split up to look for clues. Ghost Claw may have already reached the dark city. Hearing this, Li Yuxiao looked at the people behind him and said, Tianqin, you stay here. The others, escort the injured back to the academy. Leader, we came to catch Ghost Claw. If we all go back now, would it be all right? A girl asked Li Yuxiao. The dark city is just ahead. Having more people is not necessarily a good thing. It will also attract the attention of others. We will go. You guys escort the injured back first, said Li Yuxiao.
Yes.
The girl who had spoken stopped talking, nodding in agreement. After the 8 enforcers escorted Zhang Lu and the others away, only Li Yuxiao, Luo Tianqin, Ouyang Shuang, and Du Xiaofu were left in the messy forest, along with Du Xiaoyao and the shrunken king's scaled demon tiger. Li Yuxiao's gaze swept over the king's scaled demon tiger and Du Xiaoyao, and then turned to Du Xiaofu and said, You guys are also here for Ghost Claw and the mysterious spirit Heavenspan Vine? Du Xiaofu slightly recovered from the 8 million plus points and said, From the looks of it, Ghost Claw has thoroughly angered the academy, causing the academy to actually send all of you out one by one. Ghost Claw is not easy to deal with. He is sinister and cunning, vicious and merciless. We must not be careless. It is said that Ghost Claw has helpers by his side this time, so we must be even more careful. Li Yuxiao looked at Du Xiaofu and said, The dark city is not far ahead. Let's enter the city first to find Wu Kei and see if there is any news of Ghost Claw. After the dense sea of trees, there was a boundless plain that stretched as far as the eye could see. It was boundless and extremely vast. It was already dusk in the afternoon, and the sky was filled with red clouds, but it was difficult to illuminate the entire dusky sky. It made people feel a rather oppressive atmosphere, and the air seemed to be filled with the smell of blood. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. From time to time, figures would shoot over like flowing lights from the vast sea of trees in the distance. They came in 2s and 3s, and their speeds varied. They all faintly emitted a bloody aura. In the depths of the vast plains, the silhouette of a huge city loomed. The silhouette of the city was astonishing, as if it was made up of countless buildings. Translator. Translated. Black turn. Editor. Lucas translated. 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 Editor. Lon. You translated. 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 Sheditor. The K-Do and the people, as Xian. Huru Xian. Black Xian. With speed. With you, you is to run her huru. On a main road, for figures were moving at an extremely fast speed. Gradually, they appeared in front of the vast city. Only then did the 4 figures come to a stop, revealing 4 handsome faces. The 4 of them were Du Xiaofu, Ouyang Shuang, Li Yuxiao, and Luo Tianqin, who had rushed to the dark city. Du Xiaoyao leisurely landed on Du Xiaofu's left shoulder, while the king's scaled demonic tiger followed behind the 4 of them, not falling behind at all. Gazing at the setting sun in the west, the city was shrouded in darkness. The air was faintly filled with the smell of blood. The towering city gate was dozens of feet high and dozens of feet wide. It was an extremely shocking sight. Du Xiaofu softly said, Is this the dark city? Li Yuxiao stood quietly, his figure tall and straight. His dark red robes fluttered slightly as he gazed at the densely packed figures that were rushing into the dark city. Smelling the faint scent of blood in the air, he seemed to be replying to Du Xiaofu as he softly said, This is indeed the dark city. In this place, strength is everything. After entering, if you encounter any trouble, don't be courteous. Is that so? Du Xiaofu did not say anything. He had already explored the dark forest and could understand Li Yuxiao's words. Let's enter the city. From the markings along the way, Wu Kei has indeed entered the dark city. I'm afraid that other than Wu Kei, there are others already in the dark city, Luo Tianqin said. Then, the 4 of them entered the city and blended into the dense crowd. They slowly entered the towering city gate, which looked like the ferocious mouth of a giant beast. The 4 of you, stop! Just as they entered the city gate, a loud shout was heard. Then, several figures walked out of the city gate. The surrounding crowd quickly moved aside, as if they did not want to provoke these people. I'm talking to you, 3 men and 1 woman. Stop! The shout was getting closer and closer. Du Xiaofu, Li Yuxiao, and the other two slightly stopped. It was obvious that these people were coming for them. The 6 fierce-looking men quickly walked in front of Du Xiaofu and the other 3. When they looked at Ouyang Shuang, their eyes were filled with passion. The leader of the 6 men was a skinny man. He looked like a monkey. At this moment, he was looking at Ouyang Shuang with filthy eyes. His nose was about to bleed. The 7 men did not even care about Li Yuxiao, Du Xiaofu, and Luo Tianqian. Their eyes were completely fixed on Ouyang Shuang. It's the people from the Kuei Sha gang. The 3 men and 1 woman are young and dressed in bright clothes. I'm afraid they are 4 rookies who came to the Dark City to play. This is bad luck. The 4 of them must be living a luxurious life at home. They think that the Dark City is the same as the outside world. I'm afraid they won't even know how they died. I didn't expect the Kuei Sha gang to make the first move. If we had known, we would have taken action just now. The 4 rookies are dressed in bright clothes. I'm afraid they have a lot of good stuff on them. That woman is so beautiful. In the entire Dark City, it's hard to find a woman who can compare to her. As Du Xiaofu, Li Yuxiao and the other 3 were blocked, the surrounding crowd, which was originally rushing into the city gate, stopped to watch the show. What's the matter? Being blocked by the 7 men, Luo Tianqian's face darkened. He looked at the 7 men and asked in a deep voice, "Brat, is this your first time in the Dark City? Don't you know that you have to pay the entrance fee?" The skinny leader reluctantly shifted his gaze away from Ouyang Shuang. He looked at Luo Tianqian, Du Xiaofu, and Li Yuxiao. Each of them was dressed in bright clothes. They were definitely rookies who had never traveled far. A strange look flashed across his eyes. He sneered and said, "This city gate is guarded by the Kuei Sha gang. If you want to enter, you have to pay 1,000 cultivation coins per person. If you don't have that, you can leave this girl for us to play with." Hearing this, Ouyang Shuang frowned. A chill flashed across her eyes. "Are you sure? I want to remind you that there are some people that you can't afford to offend." The chill in Luo Tianqian's eyes deepened. The leader felt the chill in Luo Tianqian's eyes. His heart trembled for no reason, but he did not care. They had the advantage in numbers in the Dark City. There was nothing to be afraid of. He sneered and shouted at Luo Tianqian, "Brat, are you trying to scare me? This is the Dark City. We are from the Kuei Sha gang. If you don't behave, you won't even know how you died." Those brats are indeed rookies. They won't even know how they died. The surrounding crowd laughed and watched the show indifferently. Their eyes were filled with mockery. Bang, bang, bang. Suddenly, a deep sonic boom resounded. Golden light flickered in the field, and afterimages flashed like lightning. After 7 consecutive muffled sounds, 7 corpses were already lying on the ground. That skinny large man and the other 6 ferocious large men had been arrogant just a moment ago. However, at this moment, they had suddenly become corpses. Everyone's chest had been forcefully blasted apart. Fresh blood dripped out, and a faint smell of blood spread out. Instantly, they were killed by a single punch, clean and swift. Du Xiaofu's fist shone with a faint golden light. He leaned forward and took out 7 Xinkuan bags from the 7 corpses. He turned to Li Yuxiao and Luo Tianqian and said, "This is called not being polite. We can enter the city now." "Good job. If you don't do it, I will," Ouyang Shuang said and led the way into the city. "Let's go. Next time, you can do it even more cleanly. He is much fiercer than you." Li Yuxiao patted Luo Tianqian's shoulder and followed behind. Luo Tianqian took a deep breath and smiled bitterly. He followed them into the city. The densely packed crowd was silent at this moment. No one dared to laugh at them anymore. Smelling the faint smell of blood at the city gate, everyone knew that the 3 men and 1 woman were definitely not young masters or young mistresses. They were probably not to be trifled with. The sky gradually darkened, but Dark City was still brightly lit. It was as lively as it was during the day. In fact, it was even livelier than during the day. The sound of hawking, clamoring, and even the sound of fighting could be heard from time to time. When all these sounds gathered together, the entire Dark City was extremely noisy. "There are quite a lot of people," Du Xiaofu said softly. Looking at the bustling crowd on the streets, it was even more chaotic than the Lanling Prefecture city. I heard that there are many crouching tigers and hidden dragons in Dark City. We have to be careful and don't expose our identities too much. Our identities as Tianwu Academy students aren't very popular in Dark City. Ouyang Shuang said to Du Xiaofu. The Dark Forest is like a country, and Dark City is like the capital of a country. There are many crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Various powers are fighting for it. There are also many undercurrents, and there is no lack of top-notch experts. Li Yuxiao said, I updated very late last night, so I slept until 2 in the morning. Brothers, please forgive me. Xiao Yu is still writing. Chapter 290. There's our academy's emblem. There are people from our academy nearby. Luo Tianqian squatted on the ground and saw a simple emblem engraved on a stone slab on the street. The academy's people should be nearby. Li Yuxiao immediately said, there should be an emblem at the place where they're staying. It shouldn't be too hard to find. A moment later, outside of the 3 bustling streets, there was an inconspicuous inn at the corner of a slightly quieter street. Luo Tianqian looked at the 3 words 4 Seas Inn above the inn and said to Li Yuxiao, Du Xiaofu, and Ouyang Shuang behind him, the 4 Seas Inn should be here. When Du Xiaofu's group of 4 walked into the 4 Seas Inn, they looked at the inn's main hall and were shocked. The inn didn't look very impressive from the outside, but the hall inside was very big. There were 40 to 50 tables, and at this moment, every table was occupied. Cheers! Let's continue drinking. There was a hubbub of voices, and everyone in the main hall was drinking and eating. It was very lively. The people sitting in groups seemed to be in a mess, but it could be seen that only people who were familiar with each other and from the same faction would sit together. There were also many people who sat alone. Those who sat alone were even more frightening. Those who had experience in the outside world would know that those who walked alone were usually stronger. Otherwise, they wouldn't dare to wander alone. At the same time, their personalities were also a little eccentric. Once they were provoked, it was normal for them to immediately attack. Du Xiaofu, Ouyang Shuang, Li Yuxiao, and Luo Tianqian stood at the entrance and looked at the noisy main hall, their brows slightly raised. Such a lively inn was completely different from the inconspicuous one outside. Young master and young miss, are you here to eat or stay? A moment after the 4 of them walked through the door, a person who looked like a waiter walked forward with a smile. He was quite surprised when he saw the 4 of them dressed in bright clothes. This was especially the case when he took an extra look at Ouyang Shuang, causing his eyes to tremble. However, he immediately lowered his head and did not dare to look directly at Ouyang Shuang's unapproachable aura. Let's stay here and eat, Du Xiaofu said. He had been chased in the academy for more than half a month. He had been in seclusion in the heavenly martial seal realm for more than 3 months. He hadn't eaten anything good. Du Xiaofu was already at the peak of the pulsating realm, so he wouldn't starve to death just by drinking some water and eating some wild fruits. However, when he smelled the aroma of meat in the hall, he couldn't help himself. The waiter looked at the 4 of them and said, Young masters and young mistresses, I'm really sorry. The tables are all full. If you want to eat, you'll have to wait for a while. If you want to stay, there are only 2 rooms left. We'll take the guest room first. We'll eat later. Luo Tianqian nodded. He took out a large amount of cultivation coins and handed it to the waiter. Then, he followed the waiter to the counter to complete the registration procedures. It was just a simple registration. In a place like Dark City, there was no need to register. As long as one had cultivation coins, everything could be settled. There are 4 of us in 2 rooms. How are we going to stay? Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. I'll share a room with Luo Tianqian, and the 2 of you will share a room. It's just right. Li Yuxiao looked at Du Xiaofu and Ouyang Shuang and said, Me and her? Du Xiaofu was stunned. What? You're not willing? I'm still your elder sister. Ouyang Shuang was straightforward and didn't bother about trifles. After she glared at Du Xiaofu had nothing to say. He narrowed his eyes and said, What I mean is, if our men aren't here, how are we going to find them? We've already found them. They've also found us. Li Yuxiao said. The Tianwu Academy emblem appeared in her hand. She looked at the 3rd floor of the inn and saw a figure nodding his head. Then, the figure disappeared. I forgot. Du Xiaofu chuckled. His and Ouyang Shuang's emblems were in the hands of Bing Qianli and the others. He didn't know where they were now. Tianwu Academy's emblems were able to sense each other within a certain distance. On the third floor of the Four Seas Inn, just as the four of them stepped onto the third floor, a figure stood quietly in front of a door about 10 meters away. The figure had a slender figure. Looking from afar, one could see that the figure's eyes were black and shiny. The figure looked at Li Yuxiao and the others and nodded his head. Then, he stepped into the room. Qinluo Sword Guoxiaofeng. They're here. Luo Tianqin raised his eyebrows. The four of them entered the room that Qinluo Sword Guoxiaofeng entered. Du Xiaoyao had been on Du Xiaofu's shoulder the entire time. The king's scaled demonic tiger followed behind her. Luo Tianqin was the last to enter and closed the door behind him. After entering the room, Du Xiaofu realized that it was a small hall. At this moment, there were already 4 people seated inside. Qinluo Sword Guoxiaofeng was standing quietly by the side. His black hair was tied behind his head, and a few strands of hair fell to his ears. He had a handsome appearance. His eyes were pitch black, like an endless abyss at the end of the universe. If one looked at them for a moment longer, they would feel as if they were about to be sucked in. Looking at Qinluo Sword Guoxiaofeng, Du Xiaofu's gaze finally landed on Guoxiaofeng's hands. On each of Guoxiaofeng's wrists, there was a strange green ring. He didn't know what material it was made of, but it looked extremely ancient. There were many strange runes engraved on it, giving Guoxiaofeng, who originally had an elegant temperament, a hint of mechanical feeling. After Luo Tianqin and Ouyang Shuang entered the small hall, they nodded their heads at the 5 people in the hall. Even the dignified and evil Li Yuxiao, who didn't care about ordinary people, nodded his head at the Qinluo sword and the woman who was sitting there. After nodding his head at everyone, Li Yuxiao said to Du Xiaofu, "Let me introduce you. 4th on the martial ranking, Princess of Netherworld, Wu Quebec. 5th on the martial ranking, Qinluo Sword Guoxiaofeng. 9th on the martial ranking, Fire Blade Biming Feng. You should already know the other 2. Du Xiaofu followed Li Yuxiao's gaze and looked over. The Netherworld Princess, Wu Kei, who was ranked 4th on the martial rankings, was seated upright. She seemed to be 21 or 22 years old, and she wore a large red robe that covered half of her body, revealing a portion of her soft breasts that were as white as jade. A short skirt that seemed like armor wrapped around her perky buttocks, and her pair of slender, moist, and well-proportioned legs were exposed all the way to her fair thighs. Her attire was extremely gorgeous when compared to Li Shui's. When Du Xiaofu looked at this woman, he was even more surprised by Princess of Netherworld Wu Kei's big eyes. Her big eyes were charming, and her gaze revealed a natural charm. This was a woman who exuded seductive charm from her bones. Her black hair was like a waterfall, but her face was clean and elegant. She wore a faint smile on her face, and her entire person gave off a soft and tender feeling. Fire Blade Biming Feng had a straight nose. His skin revealed a faint red color, and his eyes were as black as ink. I'm afraid they have all reached the martial marquis realm, Du Xiaofu thought to himself. He sensed the aura of Princess of Netherworld Wu Kei, Qinluo Sword Guoxiaofeng, and Fire Blade Biming Feng. These 3 people were definitely at the same level as Demon Extermination Sword Li Yuxiao. They had already reached the martial marquis realm at such a young age. Their talent was undoubtedly terrifying. If these 3 people were placed outside, they could definitely be considered as overlords of a region. As for the remaining 2 people, Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows slightly when he looked at them. One of them was a young man with a temperament that should have been gentle and composed, but at this moment, his expression was somewhat cold. His face seemed to have been carefully sculpted, and his figure was slender and elegant. He was not ostentatious, but his entire person seemed to have an innate, extraordinary aura. He was definitely a handsome man who could make a large number of women fall for him. The other young man was strong and fierce, and his aura was extraordinary. Du Xiaofu naturally knew these 2 people. They had fought before. One was Panyu, the Flaming Hand, who was ranked 31st on the martial ranking, and the other was Tai who was ranked 99th on the martial ranking. Humph! Looking at Du Xiaofu, Panyu snorted coldly. You should be that fierce freshman, Du Xiaofu, right? I guess I've seen you before. Princess of Netherworld Wu Kei smiled faintly at Du Xiaofu and said, "Many of us saw you at the Peace Square when you stood up for our Tianwu Academy. You were fierce." Du Xiaofu shrugged his shoulders, not knowing what to say. Then, everyone found a place to sit down. Only Qinluo's sword Guo Xiaofeng stood quietly and did not say much. Wu Kei was the one who spoke the most. After explaining Li Yuxiao's situation, Wu Kei also told Li Yuxiao, Du Xiaofu, and the others about the situation after arriving at the Dark City. There was not much useful information, and they did not find Ghost Claw's whereabouts. However, they found out that General Buddy and Shanhe and Ghostchild were searching for Ghost Claw in the Dark City. There's not much time left. The auction for the mysterious spirit Heavenly Vine will start in 3 days. If the auction goes smoothly, Ghost Claw will disappear. It will be even more difficult to find him then. Wu Kei said, "Not only do we want to catch Ghost Claw, but we also want the mysterious spirit Heavenly Vine. Do you guys have a chance to get the mysterious spirit Heavenly Vine?" Li Yuxiao frowned. Whether it was catching Ghost Claw or getting the mysterious spirit Heavenly Vine, it was a tricky task in the Dark City. "No." Wu Kei shook her head and said to Li Yuxiao, "I entered the Dark City not long before you guys. Since the mysterious spirit Heavenly Vine is being auctioned, why don't we just auction it off?" Du Xiaofu said, "Then we can follow the vine to find the melon. It's not impossible to find Ghost Claw." "It would be great if we could do that." Fire Blade Biming Feng, who had been silent all this time, looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "The mysterious spirit Heavenly Vine is priceless. Since the news of the auction spread out, not to mention the entire Dark City, even the big forces in the surrounding empires have sent experts here. If we want to bid for it, not to mention the fierce competition in terms of price, the most important thing is that the Academy sent us here to seize it, not auction it. They didn't even give us a penny, so how can we bid for it?" Chapter 291. The Academy did not fork out a single cent, and still wants us to fight for the mysterious spirit Heavenspan Vine. What a good idea. Du Xiaofu was dumbfounded. If the Academy wants to buy it, then there's no need for us to come. The profound spirit Heavenspan Vine belongs to our Academy. If we buy it back, not only will we lose face for the Academy, we'll also lose face for all of us, Guo Xiaofeng said calmly. "If that's the case, then we can just snatch it if we can't buy it. After all, the mysterious spirit Heavenspan Vine belongs to Tianwu Academy," Du Xiaofu said with a frown. "That won't do. Since the mysterious spirit Heavenspan Vine is in the Dark City, according to the rules of the Dark City, it doesn't belong to our Academy." Wu Kei shook his head and said, "The mysterious spirit Heavenspan Vine is probably in the auction now. This time, the Mu clan fort is in charge of the auction. Even if the Academy's elders go, they might not be able to snatch the mysterious spirit Heavenspan Vine. If we try to snatch it, it will be even more difficult. The Mu clan fort is not to be trifled with." Mu clan fort. Du Xiaofu felt a sense of familiarity. There are 1 pavilion, 1 fort, and 2 sects in the Dark Forest. They are the Myriad Clouds Pavilion, the Mu clan fort, the Black Fiend sect, and the Twin Hatred sect. These 4 forces can be said to control the entire Dark Forest. The Dark Forest is like a country, and the Dark City is in the Dark Forest. It is equivalent to the capital of the country. The 4 forces have always fought over it. However, after so many years, they each have their own territory and no one can suppress the other 3 forces. Other than their own bases, the 4 forces' main focus is in the Dark City. Naturally, there are many experts there. It is said that there are Martial King experts in the 4 forces. Wu Kei said to the crowd, "Therefore, if we want to snatch the mysterious spirit Heavenspan Vine, I'm afraid we won't have any chance. Even the entire Tianwu Academy will have scruples." Martial King Realm. Du Xiaofu was shocked. A Martial King Realm expert was an absolute expert in any place. If they really went to snatch the mysterious spirit Heavenly Vine, the consequences would be unimaginable if they encountered a Martial King Realm expert. If that's the case, the Mu clan fort is also involved. We won't stand a chance. Du Xiaofu frowned after pondering for a moment. That's not it either. The Mu clan fort should have nothing to do with this matter. It's just that the Ghost Claw put the mysterious spirit Heavenly Vine under the Mu clan fort for auction. The Mu clan fort earns the commission from the auction. During this period, the Mu clan fort will naturally protect the mysterious spirit Heavenly Vine, Fire Blade Biming Feng said. His voice was quite sharp, like a blade radiance. Looks like Ghost Claw is pretty smart. He actually got the Mu clan fort on his side. Du Xiaofu's face turned solemn. A smart opponent was naturally harder to deal with. Moreover, Ghost Claw was vicious and cunning. The Mu clan fort doesn't dare to offend our Tianwu Academy. The forces in the Dark Forest won't openly go against our Tianwu Academy. With Tianwu Academy's rallying power and the experts that we have nurtured over the years, they have spread across the continent. Anyone who wants to touch Tianwu Academy has to think about the consequences, Li Yuyu said. Li Yuxiao replied. His dark red eyes flickered as a faint demonic aura emanated from his body. He continued, however, this is Darkness City. Over the countless years, the rules have already been set. Our Tianwu Academy is unable to control this place, and the surrounding empires are also unable to do so. Du Xiaofu squinted his eyes. Tianwu Academy was just an academy and didn't have any powerful forces. According to Du Xiaofu's knowledge, Tianwu Academy had never interfered in any matters. On the surface, Tianwu Academy was within the Stone Dragon Empire. However, the Stone Dragon Empire was no exception. Tianwu Academy never interfered in any matters and thus, Tianwu Academy didn't have any powerful forces. However, this didn't mean that Tianwu Academy didn't have any power. Over the years, there were countless disciples who graduated from Tianwu Academy. Those who were able to enter Tianwu Academy were all extremely talented, and it wasn't hard to imagine their future achievements. After a long time, Tianwu Academy had already infiltrated every corner of the empire and even the entire continent. Usually, those who graduated from Tianwu Academy wouldn't return to Tianwu Academy. However, if Tianwu Academy were to encounter a true crisis, as long as Tianwu Academy raised its arms, there would be countless people who would respond. Whoever dared to touch Tianwu Academy would definitely end up in a miserable state. Over the years, no one knew whether the experts who had graduated from Tianwu Academy had reached a terrifying level of cultivation. Let's wait for them to return before we discuss this. I hope that they can find news of Ghost Claw. As long as we capture Ghost Claw, things will be much simpler, Wu Kei said. Everyone nodded. They could only wait for the general and Ghost Child to return before discussing this matter. Have you guys found a room to stay in? I heard that there aren't many rooms in the inn. Wu Kei asked Du Xiaofu, Li Yuxiao, Ouyang Shuang, and Luo Tianchen. From time to time, she would look at Du Xiaoyao, who was on Du Xiaofu's shoulder, with fondness in her eyes. There are only 2 rooms left, Luo Tianchen replied. Hearing this, Wu Kei looked at Du Xiaofu and the other 2 and said, then it won't be easy for you guys to make arrangements. How about this? I'll stay alone. Junior Ouyang, you can stay with me. As for the 3 of you, I won't care about you guys. You guys can make your own arrangements. All right. Ouyang Shuang nodded and glared at Du Xiaofu. Sigh. Du Xiaofu could only sigh. He was worried for Wu Quebec. Ouyang Shuang was a woman who liked women. If she stayed with Wu Kei in the same room, and Wu Kei was a woman who could make people's noses bleed, Du Xiaofu didn't dare to imagine what would happen. Everyone separated. Ouyang Shuang and Wu Kei slept in the same room. Du Xiaofu was alone. He brought Du Xiaoyao and the King's Scaled Demon Tiger to his room and lay down on the bed. However, Du Xiaofu was still thinking about the 8 million points. The more he thought about it, the more his heart ached. Sigh. Du Xiaofu sighed helplessly. If he had known this would happen, he would have gone to the spirit realm to exchange for pills and weapons. Now, it was too late to regret. He was afraid that even if he went to the academy, he wouldn't be able to do anything. As the saying goes, when you're under someone else's roof, you have to lower your head. Don't sigh. I haven't sighed yet. Du Xiaoyao sat on the chair in the room like a monkey. She curled her lips and said, that guy called Guo Xiaofeng just now had a practitioner weapon in his hand. I really want to eat his practitioner weapon. Practitioner weapon. Du Xiaofu heard this and immediately glared at Du Xiaoyao. He said, I don't care if you eat other people's weapons or practitioner weapons, but don't cause trouble for me. I've had enough headaches recently. Just don't cause trouble for me. Du Xiaoyao didn't hesitate to attack Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu rolled his eyes at Du Xiaoyao and ignored Du Xiaoyao. He suddenly remembered that he hadn't satisfied his appetite. He immediately stood up and said, "No, I have to eat something." Woo-woo. When the king's scaled demon tiger heard Du Xiaofu's words, it immediately whimpered and looked hungry. "All right, let's go together." Du Xiaofu nodded and stood up to leave. Just as he opened the door, he coincidentally saw the door next door open. Liu Xiao and Luo Tianqian also walked out. "I'm going to eat something. Let's go together." Liu Xiao and Luo Tianqian didn't seem surprised to see Du Xiaofu. "All right, let's go together." Du Xiaofu didn't stand on ceremony. The three of them, together with the king's scaled demon tiger and Du Xiaoyao, went down to the third floor and arrived at the bustling first floor. At this moment, the main hall was much emptier. The three of them found a quiet table and ordered a lot of meat. "Did you guys notice that there are many strangers in the Dark City recently? The profound spirit heavenspan vine will be auctioned off in 3 days. I guess they're all here for the profound spirit heavenspan vine. That's a precious treasure." Tianwu Academy has lost a lot of face this time. Not only was the profound spirit heavenspan vine snatched away, they even dared to auction it off openly. They're simply looking down on Tianwu Academy. It's no wonder. Tianwu Academy isn't the same as before. I'm afraid there aren't many powers that are afraid of Tianwu Academy now. The three of them sat down. Discussions could be heard from the surroundings, and many of them were about Tianwu Academy and the profound spirit heavenspan vine. The three of them just smiled and ignored them. "Do you guys want a drink?" Luo Tianqian looked at Du Xiaofu. He didn't treat this ferocious young man as a normal person. "If you guys want a drink, you can drink a little. In the past, I only drank with my father," Du Xiaofu said. Then, Luo Tianqian ordered more wine and filled the table with meat and wine. The king's scaled demon tiger didn't stand on ceremony and waited for Du Xiaofu to feed it. On the other hand, Du Xiaoyao watched quietly. It was only interested in spiritual equipment and spiritual herbs. The night was as dark as ink. Even though Darkness City was called Darkness City, most of the places were brightly lit in the night sky. In the dark night, in a courtyard, a black-robed old man wearing a mask could be seen. His eyes were cold like a venomous snake, and he said to the hundreds of masked men in front of him, "The remaining members of Tianwu Academy are currently at the Four Seas Inn. They will raise the inn to the ground. Don't let them go if you can kill them." Yes, the hundreds of masked men had sinister images carved on them. A sharp and bloody aura burst out from them before they disappeared into the night sky. "Kiki, it's time for Tianwu Academy to end." The black-robed old man sneered. His gaze was so cold that it made one's hair stand on end. Then, his figure disappeared into the night sky. Today's update has been completed. Chapter 292. The night was as black as ink. Despite the hustle and bustle of the vast dark city, it was still a secluded place. In the quiet ruins, only the mottled moonlight shrouded them. This place was deserted and could be considered a wasteland at the edge of the dark city. Swish, swish at this moment, there were two figures flashing across the desolate land with lightning speed. They were like two shooting stars that streaked across the night sky. When these two figures each landed on a broken wall above the ruins, they stopped and suddenly turned their heads to look behind them. As the flowing light converged, two young men were revealed. The one on the left was about 21 or 22 years old. He was tall and sturdy. Under the cover of the moonlight, his faint bronze skin glowed with the light of the leaves. His facial features were distinct and deep, giving him a sculpture-like feeling. His temperament was extraordinary, as if he could occupy the vast sky and suppress the mountains and rivers. The young man on the right was dressed in a black robe that was as black as ink. He was very handsome, and his facial features were clear as if they were carved. His appearance seemed to be unrestrained, but the light in his eyes made people not dare to underestimate him. "You've been following me for so long. There's no one here. You can come out now." The handsome young man in a black robe on the right looked at the sky and said. His voice was soft, but it faintly revealed a fierce aura. The aura on his body fluctuated faintly, spreading a little evil chi. Tianwu Academy's 9 Nether has too few ghost dolls and no generals. What a coincidence. A sinister voice rang out in the darkness, causing people's hair to stand on end. After which, a silhouette appeared out of nowhere. Suddenly, a skinny old man appeared in front of the two young men. He was all skin and bones, and his eyes were sunken deep into his eye sockets. His pupils were slightly red, and they were filled with an extremely gloomy chill. Ghost Claw, you clearly know that we're here for you. Surrender, or let us teach you a lesson first. The young man on the left, who exuded an aura that could suppress mountains and rivers, bellowed as a sharp glint flashed across his eyes. He was the number 1 on Tianwu Academy's martial ranking, General Budu Shan He. As the number 1 general on the martial ranking, he had maintained his position ever since he came to Tianwu Academy, and no one had been able to shake his position. He was the undisputed number 1 expert of Tianwu Academy, and his name shook the entire empire. In the past, the Emperor of the Stone Dragon Empire had declared that once a general graduated from Tianwu Academy, he would be granted a fief of his own. There were already rumors of the general's strength. It was said that even some of the elders in Tianwu Academy were unable to do anything to him. Previously, the one who captured Ghost Claw was him and the second ranker on the martial ranking, Gu Xinyan. Without that little girl, I'm afraid your strength is not enough. If this old man had not been careless last time, do you really think you could have captured me? However, I do miss that little girl. She's really a peerless beauty. It's a pity that she didn't come today. This old man can only find another day to catch up with her alone. The skinny old man took a step forward in the air. He looked at the two young men with a cold look in his eyes. At this moment, he did not really care about the two of them. As Ghost Claw, whose name shook the entire dark forest, he had killed plenty of Tianwu Academy disciples. Thus, he didn't mind adding 2 more to the list. In any case, Tianwu Academy wouldn't let him off. Furthermore, one of the two was his enemy, someone he had to kill no matter what. You're courting death. The black-robed handsome young man didn't say much. Instead, his voice became increasingly sharp. Everyone in Tianwu Academy knew that he, Ghost Claw, was too young and didn't like to talk much. As soon as he finished speaking, the faint black, profound energy around Ghost Claw was accompanied by a murderous aura. Like liquid, it enveloped his entire body. The swirling, profound energy and murderous aura emitted a faint glow. Under the mottled moonlight, it looked extremely eerie. Hula. The aura released by Ghost Claw caused ripples to appear in the surrounding space. Just this aura alone was enough to prove that Ghost Claw was truly ranked 3rd on the martial ranking. Ghost Claw's gaze turned gloomy as he looked at the aura and killing intent emanating from Ghost Child. He licked his dry lips and sneered, Iske. This must be the Ghost King Palace's Yama scripture. As expected of a middle-grade Earth-level cultivation method, it's just right for me to cultivate. If I can get my hands on it, I'm sure my cultivation will improve again. The Ghost King Palace's Yama scripture? I'm afraid you won't have the life to cultivate it, Ghost Claw said coldly. Faint black, profound energy surged, causing the abundant energy and murderous aura to ripple around his body. Faintly, the glow of black runes began to spread. In the past, I was naturally afraid of the Ghost King Palace and Tianwu Academy. However, everything has changed now. Tianwu Academy, Ghost King Palace, and Ghost King Palace are nothing to me. Since you want to touch this old man today, then leave your lives behind. His cold laughter was ear-piercing. When Ghost Claw's voice sounded, numerous mysterious symbols surged out from his withered ghost claw-like hands. A sinister aura also spread out from his body. Under the sinister aura, the profound aura within the general and ghost child's bodies began to show signs of stagnation. Martial Marquis Nirvana Realm. Ghost Claw has broken through to the Martial Marquis Nirvana Realm. Sensing the aura from Ghost Claw, General and Ghost Claw's expressions turned grave. That's right. This old man, Tianyu, has broken through to the Martial Marquis Nirvana Realm. Children, prepare to die today. Ghost Claw sneered. At the same time, his figure turned into a shadow and pounced on Ghost Claw like a ghost. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of Ghost Claw. Looking at Ghost Claw's speed, Ghost Claw's pupils contracted slightly. Suddenly, A faint glow spread out from his eyes. Ghost Claw looked indescribably ghostly and cold. With a wave of his hand, black profound energy and runes swept out. His attack shook the air and enveloped Ghost Claw with a faint, murderous aura. Just reached the Martial Marquis realm. Kid, you're not strong enough. Ghost Claw sneered and did not dodge. His face was gloomy and cold. His withered palm was like a ghost claw as it fiercely collided with Ghost Child's attack. Dazzling energy runes blossomed, and a deep sonic boom suddenly resounded. Swoosh! In such a collision, Ghost Claw did not move at all. However, Ghost Claw was pushed back by a dark force. Seal of mountains and rivers. In a short instant, the Budian Shanha general pounced forward. An aura that could suppress mountains and rivers burst out, and profound energy surged. Boom! The general's palm strike was accompanied by a dazzling light, causing the space to rumble and tremble. The palm strike slammed towards the Ghost Claw, and a vast amount of rune energy swept out like a torrential flood. The Budian Shanha general was very powerful. As the strongest person in Tianwu Academy, he was unrivaled in the entire academy. Just this palm alone was enough to prove how terrifying his strength was. As expected of the strongest person in Tianwu Academy, you're getting stronger and stronger. If you die in my hands, it will be enough to make my name resound throughout the world. Ghost Claw sneered and did not retreat. A claw that was wrapped in mysterious symbols tore through the sky and ruthlessly collided with the terrifying palm that could suppress mountains and rivers. The formidable claw seemed to be able to tear through the sky. After enduring for a short moment, it actually directly tore apart the golden palm and neutralized the terrifying palm. It was a moonlit night. It was already midnight. The dark city was still brightly lit. Many places were still as bright as day and were bustling with noise. In the Four Seas Inn, the hall on the first floor was still bustling with activity, and there were no empty seats. At a secluded table, Du Xiaofu, Liu Xiao, and Luo Tianqin's table was filled with the smell of alcohol. However, at this moment, there was an additional person at the table. His black hair was tied behind his head, and a few strands of hair fell to his ears. He had a handsome appearance and a pair of deep, pitch-black eyes. However, when he ate and drank, he didn't look elegant at all. He wasn't much better than Du Xiaofu, who was wolfing down his food. He was the fifth-ranked Heaven Gathering Sword, Guo Xiaofeng. Guo Xiaofeng was the last to arrive. When he saw Du Xiaofu, Liu Xiao, and Luo Tianqin drinking and eating, he immediately sat down. He didn't stand on ceremony and simply said, "Drink and eat. You can't leave me out next time unless you look down on me. We thought that your ranking was too high, and we were afraid that we wouldn't be able to invite you." Du Xiaofu replied to Guo Xiaofeng as he gulped down his wine. Du Xiaoyao had been quietly sitting at the side. At this moment, after seeing Guo Xiaofeng, her pale golden spirit eyes had been staring at the ancient bracelet on Guo Xiaofeng's hands. That was a practitioner weapon. Her saliva was about to flow out. Liu Xiao and Luo Tianqin exchanged glances. They originally thought that Du Xiaofu didn't know how to drink, but after drinking, they realized that they were the ones who didn't know how to drink. Du Xiaofu drank as if he was drinking water. He gulped down the wine and ate the meat in big mouthfuls. The king's scaled demonic tiger also sat down on a chair and ate with big mouthfuls of meat. However, no matter how much meat there was, it wasn't enough for it. The four of them ate for nearly 2 hours before they were full. Du Xiaofu wiped his mouth and looked at Liu Xiao, Guo Xiaofeng, and Luo Tianqin. He raised his wine glass and said, "I didn't expect that your table manners would be as bad as mine." Liu Xiao, Guo Xiaofeng, and Luo Tianqin raised their wine glasses and clinked them with Du Xiaofu's. They drank it all in one gulp. Then Liu Xiao glanced at Du Xiaofu. His dark red eyes became darker as he said, "Bullshit. My table manners are definitely better than yours." Haha. Du Xiaofu laughed loudly, attracting the attention of the guests at the surrounding tables. However, they didn't pay much attention to the four of them. Du Xiaofu continued to say to Liu Xiao swears. "If word gets back, it will definitely be news." "He always swears. It's just that you don't know it." Luo Tianqin was not surprised. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "Fighting with you is not fun at all. It's too depressing." However, drinking and eating with you is not bad. Chapter 293. I wasn't the one who wanted to fight with you last time. You were the one who wanted to fight with me. It has nothing to do with me. Du Xiaofu said with a slight smile. Forget it. Seeing that you beat up Guyu for the academy, I won't pursue the matter. Luo Tianqian said. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't beat me anyway. Du Xiaofu said. Do you know how to chat or not? Luo Tianqian glared at Du Xiaofu, then took out a large pile of cultivation coins and threw it on the table. Are you guys full? If you are, let's go back and rest. We might have something to do tomorrow. I'm full. Let's go back and rest. Du Xiaofu had solved the problem of his gluttony. Hearing this, he got up and burped, a satisfied smile on his face. I'm full too. Remember to call me next time, Guo Xiaofeng said. The four of them got up and left the table. The smell of alcohol filled the air as they planned to return to their rooms to rest. They would probably have to deal with Ghost Claw and the mysterious spirit Heavenly Vine tomorrow. Lock down this 4 C's inn. Don't let anyone out. Just as the four of them left the table and were about to head upstairs, a commotion suddenly broke out at the entrance of the inn. Gang leader Hua, our 4 C's inn is the territory of the mysterious Cloud Gang. What is the meaning of this? Get lost. We're just looking for someone. Bang bang. A low muffled sound rang out, as if someone had been sent flying. Immediately, a commotion broke out at the entrance. Everyone in the hall was alarmed. Then, they saw a group of ill-looking burly men outside the entrance of the inn. Each of them held a blade and a sword as they aggressively rushed into the hall. It's the people from the Chief Fiend Gang. Gang leader, Chief Fiend, Hua Fankong actually came personally. It seems that almost all of the experts from the Chief Fiend Gang have arrived. I wonder what happened. The Chief Fiend Gang is not to be trifled with. I wonder who offended the Chief Fiend Gang. Now that the Chief Fiend has personally come, I'm afraid that person's fate will be very miserable. Originally, the commotion within the hall had affected quite a number of people and caused them to be furious. However, after seeing the group of people that had arrived and sensing the waves of terrifying auras, they immediately did not dare to say anything. There were even quite a number of people who retreated in fear when they saw the newcomers, afraid that they would provoke them. Leader, it's them. It's those guys. That's right. It's those people. Du Xiaofu, Li Yuxiao, Guo Xiaofeng, and Luo Tianqian stood up and left the table. However, as soon as they turned around, they saw that the hall had suddenly become chaotic. Then, Du Xiaofu and the other three saw a large group of men with unfriendly faces walking towards them aggressively. The four of them looked at the group of people who were shouting aggressively. They looked at each other for a while, but didn't pay much attention to them. Seems like they're here to cause trouble for us. Luo Tianqian raised his eyebrows and said, if I'm not wrong, it should be related to those people that we killed when we entered the city in the evening. Seems like there's a little trouble. Li Yuxiao said. His expression was casual, and he didn't seem to care at all. What did you do in the evening? Guo Xiaofeng asked curiously. Immediately, the four of them had no intention of leaving. Instead, they directly sat back in their seats and calmly looked at the group of fiendish people. I killed a few people. I killed all of them. However, I didn't expect that trouble would still come. Du Xiaofu's eyes slightly moved as a faint chill flashed across them. If they took the initiative to avoid this trouble, it was likely that it would attract even more trouble in the future. This was the Dark City. In the chaotic Dark City, there were not many rules and laws. Only strength was respected. The more ruthless one was, the more comfortable one would be in the city. Then continue to kill. Kill the chicken to warn the monkey. It will be quieter in the future. Guo Xiaofeng said indifferently to Du Xiaofu. Just as Guo Xiaofeng's voice fell, the group of burly men also fiercely rushed in front of the four of them. Pai pai pa pa pa. Several of the men rushed forward and kicked several tables around Du Xiaofu, Guo Xiaofeng, and Li Yuxiao's private table. Pai pai pa pa pa. Several tables were directly turned into wood shavings. A middle-aged burly man, who was dressed like a small leader and had a deep scar on his face, looked even more ferocious. He rushed in front of Du Xiaofu and the other three and scolded coldly, "Little brat, Are you the ones who killed my disciple from the chief evil gang? Du Xiaofu was rather calm. He raised his head slightly and looked at the scar-faced man. He smiled and said, "You should be a small leader in the Kuei Sha gang. As a small leader, you don't have much confidence in your words. Your threatening tone is enough, but your aura is not fierce enough. Obviously, you can't scare people. Besides, what you said should be the truth. Not long ago, I did kill a few people from the Kuei Sha gang. If you don't scram, I'm afraid you will also die later. I didn't expect these people to be the ones who killed the people from the Kuei Sha gang. They are really bold. That young man seems to be even bolder. I'm afraid these guys still don't know the power of the Kuei Sha gang. Hua Fangong came here personally. Those people are dressed in bright clothes. They don't know what kind of place the Dark City is. I'm afraid they won't even know how they died." Seeing that Du Xiaofu had directly admitted to killing the people from the Kuei Sha gang, the crowd in the hall started to discuss. "Kid, you dare to make fun of me? You are courting death." When the scarred middle-aged man heard Du Xiaofu's words, he was instantly enraged. This youth clearly did not place him in his eyes at all. How could he endure it any longer? Even in the entire Dark City, he was considered to have a little reputation. How could he allow himself to be looked down upon by a youth who was still wet behind the ears? Immediately, he took a step forward and directly sent a palm strike towards Du Xiaofu. Rumble. The middle-aged man's profound chi was yellow. He was at the mysterious pulse spirit realm. His palm was wrapped in profound chi and runes. A faint rumbling sound could be heard as the space trembled. However, there was no leakage of energy. This showed that this man's strength was definitely not weak. The palm strike wasn't aimed at Du Xiaofu, Li Yuxiao, Guo Xiaofeng, or Luo Tianqian, so they naturally didn't move. The king's scaled demonic tiger's gaze wavered. However, without receiving Du Xiaofu's order, it naturally would not open its mouth. However, Du Xiaofu moved because the palm was already close to his head. He raised his hand slightly and did not even look at it. He just punched out. His fist was wrapped in a faint golden light, and it collided with the scar-faced man's palm with lightning speed. Gotcha! There was not much sound of energy colliding because the strength of the two was not on the same level. Only the sound of bones breaking could be heard from the scar-faced man's palm. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. From his palm to his shoulder, the clothes on his entire arm were directly shattered into pieces. Poochie. The scar-faced man's arm was completely shattered. However, before he could even scream, blood spurted out from his mouth. His body was directly sent flying and finally smashed onto the ground. Boom! The scar-faced man's body smashed onto the ground, causing it to shake and crack. Before he landed, his vitality had already been shattered. He could not be more dead. A Meridian Spirit Realm cultivator at the profound level could be easily killed with a single punch. Everyone in the hall was dumbfounded. That young man who still smelled of his mother's milk was actually so powerful. His strength was absolutely terrifying. Gang leader, Elder Dao is dead. The group of disciples from the Chief Fiend gang were also shocked. A few burly men rushed to the front of the scar-faced man and examined him carefully. Suddenly, their faces changed. An elder of the mysterious Meridian Spirit Realm had been killed with a single punch. You dare to touch our Kuei Sha gang's people. You have guts. If you have the guts, tell us your name. I, Hua Fangong, will never kill nameless people. The leader of the burly men stepped forward. He was not old and looked like he was in his 40s. He was 7 feet tall and had a thin body. He wore a tight short shirt and had a pair of sharp eyes. At this moment, the burly man's eyes were fixed on Du Xiaofu, Guo Xiaofeng, Li Yuxiao, and Luo Tianqian. He could not see any panic or fear in the eyes of these 4 young men. He even felt that there was no fear or panic in the eyes of these young men. Instead, there was a hint of mockery in their eyes. Guo Xiaofeng glanced at the leader of the burly men who called himself Hua Fangong and said, "No need to talk. We don't have any power behind us. You can do it if you want. You are really arrogant. Each one is more arrogant than the other. Do you think there is no one in our Kuei Sha gang? Then let me see if you have the ability to be so arrogant." After hearing Guo Xiaofeng's words, Hua Fangong seemed to be relieved. "Since you are not from a power that we can't afford to offend, there is nothing to worry about. The muscles on his face twitched slightly. His voice was sharp, and there was a flash of coldness in his eyes. When he finished speaking, a strong aura suddenly spread out from Hua Fangkong's body. It was like a halo suddenly enveloping his body. His palm bent into a claw, and he took a step forward. He directly grabbed Du Xiaofu's head with lightning speed. Swish! The claw print swept out and was wrapped in runes. It was as if it was going to tear the space apart. It was accompanied by the sound of thunder. The vast aura made everyone in the hall short their breath. The qi in their bodies stagnated. Those with lower cultivation suddenly trembled. This time the young man is dead. Hua Fangkong is a martial marquis. Although the young man has some skills, I am afraid he is going to die. How can a young man who is still wet behind the ears be able to contend with a martial marquis like Hua Fangkong? Hua Fangkong had personally taken action. Many people in the hall were shocked and started to discuss again. Chapter 294. Qila. The claw swept through the air, heading straight for Du Xiaofu. Looking at the momentum of the claw, if Du Xiaofu were to be caught, he would probably be torn to pieces. As Hua Fangkong made his move, Du Xiaofu's eyes trembled slightly. However, he did not back down. Instead, he threw out another punch as though it was a conditioned reflex. His fist was wrapped in golden symbols and mysterious runes, making it look like a compressed golden sun. Boom! The two collided with a loud bang, and the floor of the hall cracked. Only the table where Guo Xiaofeng, Liu Xiao, and the other three were sitting did not move at all. The collision of fist and claw seemed to distort the surrounding space. Upon closer inspection, one could see the skin on Hua Fangkong's hand twisting strangely, as if it had been attacked by something. His claw was like a poisonous snake opening its mouth to devour Du Xiaofu, accompanied by runes. How can this be? However, Hua Fangkong instantly realized that his claw had been completely blocked. Then, pain radiated from the center of his claw, as if his bones were about to break. Qilal. Even if Hua Fangkong had the support of a vast amount of profound energy, he was still unable to withstand the pain and impact of the attack on his heart. His body immediately began to tremble as he took 4 steps back. With every step he took back, the ground beneath his feet directly turned into fine powder. Kacha. The stool Du Xiaofu was sitting on made a kacha sound. The legs of the stool had unknowingly sunk several inches into the ground, and the ground around it crumbled. Beginner Martial Lord Realm. Du Xiaofu raised his head to look at the retreating Hua Fangkong. Beginner Martial Lord Realm cultivation was definitely not low. Your strength seems to have improved again. At this moment, Luo Tianqin, Liu Xiao, and Guo Xiaofeng were not looking at Hua Fangkong. Instead, their gazes fell on Du Xiaofu in surprise. Liu Xiao and Luo Tianqin, in particular, were the most surprised. That guy is in the Martial Lord realm. Let me fight alone while you guys watch from the side. Is that okay? Du Xiaofu also stared at Liu Xiao and Guo Xiaofeng. These two guys were also martial lords. It's not good, but I'll give it a try. Liu Xiao suddenly moved. In an instant, the figure that was sitting upright strangely disappeared in a flash. Qi. At the same time, Liu Xiao's figure appeared in front of Hua Fangkong, who had just stabilized himself. His eyes were dark red, and his body was enveloped in a dazzling light. Try and take my palm. A faint voice rang out from Liu Xiao's mouth. Suddenly, a palm print shot out from his hand. The seemingly light palm print exploded with a powerful pressure, causing the surrounding space to suddenly tremble as it rapidly arrived in front of Hua Fangkong. He is also a martial lord. Hua Fangkong's face immediately changed. The devilish qi caused his heart to tremble for no reason. He immediately waved his hand and sent out a palm strike to meet it. Swish! The two palms instantly collided, but only a slight explosive sound burst out. It was as if the two of them were restraining themselves and did not want to tear down the entire inn. However, the runes scattered, and in an instant, it was dazzling and resplendent. A majestic and powerful strength qi spread out in the hall like a screen of light, causing many of the onlookers to flip over their tables. They were in an extremely sorry state. and there were even some unlucky ones who were directly injured by the aftermath of the spreading strength qi. Ding ding! Hua Fangkong's body instantly staggered backwards. After a muffled groan from his throat, a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. The surprise in his eyes had also turned into shock. It's barely enough. Li Yuxiao quietly stood there, as if the one who had just attacked was not him. On his smooth and fair face, his jet-black eyes were suffused with a red light, causing the onlookers in the hall to feel their hearts tremble when they looked at him. I'll give it a try too. Guo Xiaofeng's figure also disappeared from the chair. At the same time his voice came out, his figure had already appeared in front of the shocked Hua Fangkong. The hair on his back fluttered in the wind, the runes surged, and his fist punched out, causing the space to tremble wherever it passed. His attacks were elegant, but the vast aura seemed to be able to suppress and destroy everything. Faintly, a muffled sound resounded in the air. Heavy wave fist. Hua Fangkong was shocked. These few youths were actually more terrifying than the last. He quickly condensed his hand seals, and the profound qi burst out. The profound qi fluctuated in a strange manner, wave after wave, accompanied by a thick and continuous aura, like a wave. In the end, it instantly condensed into a fist, and he had no choice but to rush forward. Bam! The two fists suddenly came into contact, and a loud explosion sounded out in the hall. Following that, the hard stone floor beneath their feet was directly shattered into powder with a boom. Crack, crack. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, cracks on the ground spread out like a spider web. Poochie. Hua Fangkong opened his mouth, and a mouthful of blood spurted out. Then, his figure violently shot out, and after his body landed heavily on the ground, he still stuck close to the floor for nearly a dozen meters, knocking the tables and chairs in all directions, before finally coming to a stop. Bullshit, Chief Fiend Gang. You're courting death. Luo Tianqian moved, and his yellow-robed figure disappeared from the chair, directly rushing towards the group of people from the Chief Fiend Gang. His 5 fingers clenched, and the mysterious runes on his fists glowed, and his profound qi surged, like a suppressed volcano erupting. He directly started to attack. Bang! 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 Suddenly, a low muffled sound was heard, like a thunderclap. One by one, the fierce-looking burly men from the Chief Fiend Gang were like sheep. Their figures were directly smashed away, and blood spurted out from their mouths. Instantly, the hall was filled with miserable screams. Under the miserable screams, the burly men were sent flying, and the stronger ones were seriously injured, while the weaker ones could not even get up. Many people activated their pulse spirit, but before they could fully activate it, they were directly sent flying by Luo Tianqian. Of the dozen or so burly men, half of them were at the pulse spirit realm. In just a few breaths of time, Luo Tianqian had sent them flying. At least half of them had died. Luo Tianqian did not hold back at all. Pick up the Chinkuan pouches. Du Xiaofu stood up, and as soon as his butt left, the chair he was sitting on turned into powder. Then, Du Xiaofu's figure appeared in the hall, and one by one, he took out the Chinkuan pouches from the bodies of the experts from the Chief Fiend Gang who were beaten down by Luo Tianqian. Boom! In the process, 2 Pulse Spirit Realm cultivators from the Chief Fiend Gang tried to dodge, and hurriedly retreated towards Hua Fangkong. However, Du Xiaofu did not hesitate to smash their heads and chests with a punch, directly suppressing and killing them. His attack was overbearing and ruthless, and he did not hold back. In the hall, everyone's astonished eyes fell on the 3 young men and a teenager. Originally, everyone thought that the 4 of them would not know how they died. At this moment, everyone realized that these young men were the stars of misfortune, and each one was stronger than the previous one. There was no doubt that the Chief Fiend Gang had kicked a steel plate this time. The hall was silent, and everyone looked at each other. The 4 young men were definitely not rookies, but the top of the younger generation with extraordinary backgrounds. The Chief Fiend Gang leader Hua Fangkong was at the Martial Lord realm. Even in the entire Dark City, he definitely had a reputation. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to lead the Chief Fiend Gang in the Dark City until now. However, in front of these young men, he could only be ridiculed. At the edge of the hall, Hua Fangkong stood up. His clothes were torn to pieces, and his body was covered with bruises from the rubble on the floor. There was blood at the corner of his mouth, and it made him look extremely miserable. Next time, before looking for trouble, you must wear your eyes. I have said, if you don't get lost, you will all die. Du Xiaofu collected many Qingkuan bags along the way and blew up a few chief fiend gang members. Then, he came in front of Hua Fankong and said indifferently. At this moment, Hua Fankong's eyes were filled with shock, and he suddenly felt a chill in his heart. The four young men in front of him were not easy to deal with. This time, he had misjudged them. I have heard that the general has killed a martial lord realm cultivator. I have not killed one yet, so let's start today. Liu Xiao came to Du Xiaofu's side and said indifferently. The evil qi around his body was looming, and it made people's hearts turn cold. I have also not killed a martial lord realm cultivator, so I want to try. Guo Xiaofeng's figure also appeared beside Du Xiaofu, and the three of them faintly sealed Hua Fankong in the middle. At this moment, Hua Fankong finally realized the real consequences. These young men were not easy to deal with, and each of them were neat and tidy. At this moment, they had no intention of letting him go. Brothers, I have eyes but failed to see. I have offended all of you, and I deserve to die. I will bring my men and leave, and I promise that I will not disturb the four of you again. How about that? Hua Fankong looked at Du Xiaofu and the other two and said. At this moment, he only wanted to save his own life. There were many crouching tigers and hidden dragons in the dark city, and it was hard to say who would be the absolute strongest. Therefore, Hua Fankong did not want to cause trouble, and this was also the main reason why he was able to stay in the dark city with the chief fiend gang. However, today, Hua Fankong was having fun with a lover that he had just met. Then, he heard that a few people had been killed by a young man, and one of them was the lover's brother. Under the lover's crying, Hua Fankong had no choice but to come personally to seek revenge. At first, he thought that they were just a few young men, and no matter how strong they were, they would not be that strong. He also did not find out who their backer was, and thought that it would be easy to take them down. However, Hua Fankong did not expect that these young men were malefic stars, and each of them was abnormally strong. Today's update has been completed,